All right, what's going on? Drive time, Wednesday afternoon, 8 minutes past the hour, 2 o'clock. The sun is trying to shine. It's warm enough. It's about 68, 70 degrees, but it is cloudy today here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah on this spring Wednesday afternoon. And as it is every single day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic. That's Porter Larson behind the glass today, and we've got a jam-packed show. Christmas Eve for a lot of football fans. The NFL draft is tomorrow. We do some draft on the show today. Get you ready for the draft. We are your home of the NFL draft. Here in the market, the latest on the buzz surrounding Jackson Dart. Played his high school football not too far away from where we're talking today, just down south. The latest buzz on any of the local players. It's one of those years where not a lot of local guys are expected to hear their name called early, if at all. But we'll get you ready for the draft tomorrow. And then don't forget, tomorrow after we sign off, you'll hear the NFL draft on our radio station. So, day before the draft, big day for a lot of people. You love pro football. We'll get to some NBA basketball, some takeaways from the games last night. We'll preview the games tonight, triple header tonight. It will start with Orlando and Boston at 5 o'clock Mountain Time. So while we're on air, Orlando and Boston will actually tip. NBA TV has Miami and Cleveland, and then the late-night game on Turner is Golden State and Houston. So some fun games tonight. I think a lot of people are excited for that Golden State game, Golden State-Houston. Last night, the Lakers flipped the script. Luka Doncic looked, well, the way he usually does, and they took care of the T-Wolves 94-85. The Thunder didn't win by 50. They won by 19, but it was basically over after the first quarter. They were up 15 after one. Memphis made a bit of a charge in the third, but really never seriously threatened. And a sneaky good series. Two teams that, for whatever reason, don't seem to like each other. The Pacers and the Bucks. Dame Lillard came back, but did not look like himself. And the Pacers now lead that series 2-0. OKC is up 2-0, and Lakers, Timberwolves tied at one game apiece. Jason Tatum looks like Jason Tatum will sit tonight. And if you're Boston, why not? The Celtics lead that series 1-0. Cavs are up 1-0. And, of course, Golden State leads Houston 1-0. So NBA playoffs, spring basketball is always a lot of fun to get into. Unfortunately, the Jazz are not involved for the third straight year. But we will learn the Jazz draft lottery fate. Coming up in just about 3 weeks-ish on Monday, May the 12th. Is when we're going to learn where the Jazz will draft. And once we have that information, we'll kind of color the context of what the offseason will look like for Danny Ainge and Justin Zanuck and the Utah Jazz front office trying to piece together a winning basketball team. So we'll get to the latest in pro basketball. The college football transfer portal continues to make people angry online. We'll tell you the latest. As far as University of Utah's efforts to try to bring in some wide receivers to replace Zachariah Williams, Zach Williams, I guess, is how he's kind of going this year. But some tough news came down yesterday. A lot of people believe Zach Williams would be wide receiver one for Utah football this year. It's a positional group of need, and he has hit the transfer portal. As we talked about yesterday, it doesn't necessarily mean that he is gone altogether. But the latest for the Utes, the latest for the Cougars, the latest on the college football transfer portal, college basketball transfer portal. Alex Jensen and his staff are hosting some recruits this week. Of course, the Dallas Mavericks lost to the Memphis Grizzlies last week, final game of the play-in situation. And so Alex is now free to allocate his time and energy to be the head coach of the University of Utah. Jimmer Fredette, James Taft Fredette, BYU legend, one of the most exciting college basketball players we've had here in state, has announced his retirement. Maybe we'll get Jimmer on the show. Friend of the program. We've had Jimmer on the show before. Jimmer is 36 years old. An incredible basketball life, quite frankly. We'll get into it on the show today as we say goodbye to Jimmer Fredette, has announced his retirement. Ton to do, man. Busy show. Real Salt Lake, according to a bunch of rumors, on the precipice of bringing in not just one, but maybe a couple, if not three players, as today is the final day of the primary transfer window in Major League Soccer. So as long as you have your paperwork dialed in, you're good to go. Oftentimes we'll hear some of the announcements as far as acquisitions after the window closes, but a lot of pressure on the RSL front office to add some reinforcement to Pablo's team because so far it has not been great. Real Salt Lake will be back in action coming up on Saturday against San Diego. Diego Luna will be on the pitch, on the field, whatever you want to say, depending on your level of soccer or football snobbery, after Real Salt Lake was able to get that red card rescinded. The appeal was approved. That never happens. It's pretty wild that it went down. Even when it's obvious, leagues usually protect their officials. But RSL appealing the red card, and it was approved, as John Kimball talked about on the show yesterday. A little bit of breaking news courtesy of Johnny. So a ton to do. Busy Wednesday show. You are officially halfway through that work week. You are one day closer to the weekend, a weekend that looks like it will have some decent weather. Hopefully you can get outside and do a little hiking, a little biking, play a little golf or whatever you're into. Some of the ski resorts still open if you want to do that. We're going to have some cool temperatures into early next week. April, of course, brings a bunch of different weather variations. So a ton to do. Our first guest right out of the gates, our buddy from Sumer Sports, Sam Bruckhouse, stops by. We'll do a comprehensive NFL draft preview with Sam, our first guest. The Stanley Cup playoffs continue to be wildly entertaining. Utah Hockey Club has entered their offseason phase. Neil Smith will stop by, our weekly guest, to talk pro hockey. Christopher Kamrani, Chris Kamrani from The Athletic will roll by. We'll do a bunch of college football with Chris today. A little RSL too, but we'll do some Utes and some Cougars. Talk some transfer portal, and the natives are restless. I know you guys are arguing with each other online. My gentle advice to you would be sign off, take a walk, and take a few deep breaths. Maybe hydrate, take a nap. Maybe a little non-sleep deep rest. No big deal. So we'll bring in CK today, and then Patrick Manning. I haven't decided how I'm going to approach this interview today. Patrick Manning, who's one of the managing partners from the Black Desert Resorts, will stop by to do a little golf. They've got the LPGA coming up, and, of course, the PGA coming up as well. And I haven't decided how heavily I'll lean into the fact that I can't get a tee time at Black Desert. Even when I inquired in February about a tee time for May, the tee sheet was already booked. So I haven't decided if I'm going to be nice to Patrick Manning today. I'm not going to lie. That's a host being honest and vulnerable. Hopefully you guys see me and hear me on a Wednesday. That's all I want, to be seen and heard. Porter, that's all I want. Do you see me? Do you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay. I just want to be my authentic self on the radio.
I think if you want a tee time, the best approach would be to really butter him up, to really lean into placating the managing partner of Black Desert Resort.
I called in February for a tee time in May. What is this, Royal Troon? Give me a break.
It's the first year.
No, it's not.
Second year.
Third. It is the third year.
Full operations.
Okay.
And there's heavy demand.
How's your Wednesday, pal?
It's good. It's good. Halfway through the work week. We're over hump day. But the NBA playoffs, man, once the NBA playoffs get going, Spence, obviously the March Madness college basketball gets me there. But once the NBA playoffs get going, it kind of reignites my hoops love, my hoops fandom. It's always there, but sometimes it goes dormant until we get some postseason basketball. So I've been a kid in a candy store the last few nights.
It's been a lot of fun. LeBron looked awesome last night. I mean, Luke is the best player on that team now, but it's a great thing if you're a Laker fan that LeBron can just do what he does and then not have all the pressure. And we'll talk about it on the show. We're going to be a little NFL draft heavy and some other stuff as well. So we'll start off with a little NBA. So our first guest will be Sam Bruckhouse to talk some NFL draft. But before we get to Sam, on a Wednesday afternoon, courtesy of our good friends and your good friends too at Prize Picks, it is time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 and run your game with Prize Picks.
Cash in on the basketball playoffs with Prize Picks. Don't miss your last chance to add your favorite players from the court to your Prize Picks lineup. Whether it's points, rebounds, assists, you can take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash today. Turn your playoff hot takes into tickets to basketball's championship series. Starting with the play-in, every lineup you make on Prize Picks will enter you into the Take-Two ticket sweepstakes, which could get you in a +1, a VIP trip to the ship. So here's what you do. You download that Prize Picks app today. You use the promo code ESPN700 at checkout, and they're going to hook you up with $50 when you place that first $5 bet. You do not even have to win the $5 bet to get to 50. It is on the house. Tonight, I am going Stephen Curry for more than 25.5 points. I'm going Paolo Banchero for less than 26.5 points. I'm going Jimmy Butler for more than 24.5 points. And I'm going, we'll go Jalen Green for more than 18.5 points. So there you go. Entertainment purposes only. Do what you got to do. But go get the free $50 from our friends at Prize Picks, and then see if you enjoy it. It's a fun way to get a little action in on the games. All right, we're going to do some NFL draft right out of the gates with Sam Bruckhouse. The latest buzz on Jackson Dart, the latest buzz on Shedeur Sanders. Will Cleveland move off of 2? There are reports that Cleveland actually kind of wants to draft Travis Hunter at 2 and try to trade back into the first round to take Shedeur Sanders. Ben Solak hopped on the show yesterday to discuss that. The Giants at 3 are kind of a question mark. According to Adam Schefter, they are fielding calls. We'll bring in Sam Bruckhouse to see if he anticipates a busy draft day coming up tomorrow, but the NFL draft will be a lot of fun. But last night, a little playoff basketball right off the top here. The LA Lakers came out with a much more physical, assertive mindset in the first quarter and essentially finished off the Minnesota Timberwolves. After about 1.5 quarters, the T-Wolves made a couple of runs, but nothing really ever that serious because the Lakers schematically changed up their approach. Give JJ Redick a lot of credit. This is JJ's first playoff series as an NBA head coach. He's realized, kind of like, and we'll get into this a little bit with Golden State playing Houston tonight. And, Jazz fans, you're going to crack a little smile here. The LA Lakers are doing everything they can to put Rudy Gobert in compromising situations or put him on the bench altogether. I think J.J. Redick has realized he can't play Jackson Hayes. Jackson Hayes is their starting center. He played 9 minutes last night. He had a couple of just atrocious, dumb mistakes. He had 5 fouls in 9 minutes. So the majority of the minutes went to Dorian Finney-Smith and Gabe Vincent off the bench, and they kind of went with LeBron and Rui Hachimura as their 2 bigs. And, LeBron is no longer the best player in the league. He's no longer the best player on that team. But watching LeBron at this phase of his career continue to be cerebral about his approach and allocate energy when he needs to in the right moments is pretty remarkable. I'm not a Brady guy. You guys know that I'm a Jets fan. But watching Brady into his early and mid-40s continue to just outthink opponents, watching LeBron do this is pretty similar as he continues to advance in age. I think LeBron will probably play for 1 more year. I think we have 1 more year of LeBron next year. But the way he looks right now, if he wanted to play for another 2 or 3, probably could. Now, I think a lot of people around the league thought LeBron would play until the Lakers drafted Bronny and LeBron making sure his son is set up and then would exit stage left. But 21 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists. Some great defensive possessions in the fourth quarter from LeBron. But really last night was the case in point example as to why the Lakers, and I'm laughing as I say this because, of course, the Lakers wanted to trade for Luka as Nico Harrison continues to be this punching bag clown in pro basketball for moving on from this 25-year-old generational player and global superstar who dominated every facet of the game last night right from jump. And that's what was great if you're a Laker fan last night. That's what they did not do in Game 1. In Game 1, Minnesota brought the physicality to Los Angeles, and they did not respond. LeBron didn't respond. LeBron didn't have a good Game 1. Now, in Game 1, Luka had a great scoring night, but he only had 1 assist because what Minnesota did is they allowed Luka to kind of get his as far as scoring the basketball, but they took away his ability to facilitate. They were kind of hedging on other players, and they just said, okay, Luka, you go get yours, but we're going to make sure everybody else is kind of taken care of. So Austin Reeves had a really good second half. And like I said, J.J. Redick, give him some credit for making some adjustments. Golden State is going to have to play small to beat Houston. We'll get into that a little bit later on. And I think J.J. Redick has realized that the best way to neutralize Minnesota is to make sure that Rudy Gobert is either on the bench or when he's in the game, they are hunting him explicitly, specifically the Luka Gobert matchup. So on offense, what the Lakers would do is they would bring up, say Rudy was guarding Rui Hachimura or Jackson Hayes in his 9 minutes. Whoever Rudy was guarding would set the primary screen on Luka's defender, and then they would force the switch. So then it was Rudy trying to guard Luka in isolation. And look, there are moments where Rudy handles that well. And if you're a Jazz fan, you remember all the debates we would have with national guys who would come on the show and be like, yeah, Quinn's got to sit Rudy. He can't play. Like, he's bad in isolation. And the reason why that debate was flawed here is that the Jazz just did not have a good defensive team around Gobert. They had a lot of small guards. Their starting backcourt was Donovan Mitchell at 6'3" and Mike Conley at 6 feet. And then their best wing defender was Royce O'Neal, who, if we're honest, was just acceptable as a wing defender. But all the other wing defenders were so horrible. We talked about Royce O'Neal like he was Bruce Bowen from 1999, and he just wasn't. So here, Rudy had to play big minutes no matter what the other team did because the Jazz didn't have a good enough defensive team around him. Chris Finch can afford to sit Gobert against the Lakers because he has a really good backup in Naz Reid. And quite frankly, I think Chris Finch probably should have sat Gobert longer last night. Naz Reid only played 21 minutes after playing, I think, 37 game one. 3 of 8 from the floor, 9 points. I think he knocked down 5 threes game one. Minnesota didn't shoot well. It was a really weird Ant game. He didn't really get involved until the second half. And Ant is only 23. You know, he needs to evolve to this place. If he's going to be like the next generation great American superstar, he's got to play with more killer instinct when a game like that is on the line. Because, yes, you got your split. And as they say, if you're the road team, you got 2 games to get 1. So if you're Minnesota, you're going back to Target and you're pretty satisfied. But if Minnesota beat L.A. last night, history tells us like they're basically cooked. And I was pretty unimpressed with Minnesota's urgency. I didn't think they played near as hard as they did in game one. They played like a team to me that was satisfied with getting the split and going home. So Target Center, game 3, and now the series is deadlocked in 1 game apiece. Real quick, Pacers Bucks, man. I'm sure a lot of people out here aren't necessarily dialed in. Maybe Dame Lillard fans are. These two teams don't like each other, and it feels something personal between Tyrese Halliburton and Dame Lillard. So Dame comes back to play his first game, I think, since mid-March, and he was only 4 of 13. He did have 7 assists, 14 points. Bobby Portis was really good off the bench. Giannis is just Giannis. But Indiana and their coach, Rick Carlisle, I mean, that is a good team. It's well-balanced. They've got a pit bull off the bench in Benedict Mather, and they've got a lot of physical players that are not afraid to get up on you at the perimeter. And we saw some pretty salty moments last night in this series. If you're not watching it, it's kind of intriguing because these two teams clearly do not like each other. I don't have anything to say about OKC Grizz. That series is going to be over in 4, and honestly, I wish it was over in 3. I'll just continue to say I'm so wildly impressed with the roster that Sam Presti has built and the job that Mark Daigneault has done. They go 10 deep in the playoffs, and all 10 of these players can play, and even the players that aren't getting minutes can all play. Dylan Jones, local kid, Kendrick Williams, Ajay Mitchell didn't get minutes last night, but they're all capable. Alex Caruso, Jalen Williams, Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, Cason Wallace, like all these dudes can play, and they play high-level basketball. And if you're a Jazz fan, the one thing to look at here is that if you can build a juggernaut like this in Oklahoma City, any narrative about not being able to do that in Salt Lake needs to be thrown out the window. We take a lot of heat as far as where we live and the market where our teams exist. If you've ever been to Oklahoma City, you know that Salt Lake is probably superior in every single way. So if Sam Presti can do this at OKC, they can get it done over with the Jazz in Salt Lake. All right, we will catch a break. We'll get back to this because I do want to talk a little Golden State Houston tonight. There's some parallels to draw between what the Lakers have to do and what I think Golden State has to do as well, what Steve Kerr did in game 1. So we'll get back to some NBA in a little bit, but it is Christmas Eve for NFL fans. The NFL draft is tomorrow. So coming up on the other side, we'll bring in our buddy Sam Bruckhouse from Sumer Sports to get a comprehensive draft preview. Neil Smith, Chris Camrani, Patrick Manny, and me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners. It's good to have you with us on this Wednesday afternoon. Don't go anywhere. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. Get back to some of the NBA playoff action after some fun games last night. And what should be a fun night tonight, Stanley Cup playoff action as well. We'll bring in Neil Smith. Chris Camerani rolls by, Patrick Manning for a little golf. But it is the day before the NFL draft, Christmas Eve for football fans. Our next guest is a good friend of the show from Sumer Sports. It's always fun to welcome in Sam Bruckhouse onto the program on a Wednesday afternoon. Sam, happy Wednesday, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. We're, less than or around 24 hours until the NFL draft, and people still have no idea what's going to happen. So I'm super excited to be on the Sumer Sports Show tomorrow on YouTube on the Sumer Sports platforms, and super excited to talk about the draft right now.
For sure, man. I appreciate the time. But before we get into the draft, my producer informs me, as you know, we are the home of the University of Utah. We are broadcasting, about a mile and a half away from Rice-Eccles Stadium. We had our spring game on Saturday, and so Ute fans kind of got their first look at Devin Dampier. I wonder what you make of the new quarterback here in Salt Lake City. What should Ute fans know?
Look, so when we were grinding through the transfer portal, Devin Dampier was someone who really popped up as a guy who may have an ability to make a major impact at the P5 level, and I'm glad he went to Utah because this guy has a superpower. And rarely in college do we see guys at the G5 level have a absolute superpower that is better than everyone else, and that will almost surely translate to the next level. Using frame-by-frame analysis, which means we're looking at every single millisecond of a play, we noticed that Devin Dampier is one of the best sack avoiders in the NCAA, and I would expect him to continue to be so at Utah. What does that mean? Think about the Denver Broncos, for example, this year. A lot of people had a lot of questions about Bo Nix, but Sean Payton kept saying over and over again that this was a guy who avoided negative plays, and a lot of people who had watched him at Auburn, for example, didn't know what he was talking about. He came in, and he was absolutely elite at avoiding sacks, and that allowed that offense to get the offensive line going, the screen game going, guys like Devon Vele going at the wide receiver position. If Devin Dampier is able to translate that 100th percentile sack avoidance, and you can even go look at the number of sacks that he had, they were so minimal, especially for a small player. I think that there's really going to be a special sauce to the Utah offense this year, which I was really excited to come on here and talk about.
Love that. Let me ask you one follow-up question, because his numbers last year at New Mexico on the ground were elite from the quarterback position, but he had 12 touchdown passes and 12 picks through the air. And I don't know, Sam, if he's going to be able to duplicate his ground attack as he translates to the Big 12. But through the air, with his arm, 12 touchdowns, 12 picks in a lesser division, if I could be kind and not being disrespectful. Does that concern you about what he'll be able to do against Big 12 competition week in and week out?
So it's an excellent point, and I think further analysis is needed, especially once he gets in a Utes jersey, about what those interceptions mean. And given he was a guy, as you mentioned, in a team that was not super powered and overachieved a little bit, I wonder how much that comes from the surrounding cast. For example, he was doing a lot of running around behind a poor offensive line, trying to avoid sacks and just trying to make plays. My expectation is as he adds a little bit more structure, his accuracy will increase, his decision-making will increase, and he'll keep playing off the back of those eliminating negative plays on a play-by-play basis through his sack avoidance. And then the negative plays through the air, which, typically are a little bit more random. And frankly, especially if they're on third or fourth down when you're just trying to make a play, don't kill you as much as a first down sack would. We're going to see more consistency in his play. That's something very key to look at in weeks 1 and 2. And I'll report back to y'all on what we end up seeing about his accuracy and decision-making scores. But those definitely have to be improved. But I think they will on a more talented youth team.
Love it, Sam. Good stuff. All right, we'll move over to the draft. Of course, it's an exciting time for pro football fans, and we are the home of the NFL draft here in Salt Lake, so we'll have it on our radio station. And we'll start with what is probably an easy question, but because I've been doing this for a long time, I know that sometimes smoke screens are sent out. Does it feel like it's just a consensus that Tennessee is going Cam Ward? Is there any sort of intrigue at the top?
It feels like it's locked tight. You look at the betting markets, you look at the prediction markets, feels like that's the way that they will go. The only way that I think this could get shaken up a little bit is if someone just absolutely gives them a Godfather offer for one. Here's a quick little note. A lot of people have said that Cam Ward would have gone quarterback 4, 5, 6 last year. That indicates to me that he has what scouts call a green grade on him. So he's not a blue chip player. And if that's the expectation as well, you look at the data in some of the consensus mock drafts, typically Shedeur Sanders is more in that, 10 to 20 spots below him. That would also indicate that Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart or some of these guys may also have a green grade. If that is true, the Titans have a green grade on him and maybe have a green grade on somebody else. It would indicate that if someone gave them a Godfather offer for one, you probably would take that and expect that you get another quarterback down the line. I think that's extremely low probability for the Titans because, they can just go ahead and take him. But for a team like the Browns or the Giants or the Jaguars or even the Raiders, for example, that may mean a ton, especially given some of those teams need quarterbacks. So I think the Titans are selecting Cam Ward. I think that calculus about trading back applies a lot more to the Browns, the Giants, and the other teams.
Now I'll ask a follow-up. If they go Cam Ward, Sam, do you agree with the selection? Do you think that's the right move?
I think it is. I think that really all three of the teams at the top should be considering a quarterback selection. The positional value of the quarterback is just so much more than every position that it kind of indicates that if you have a premium pick, you should either select a quarterback or try to drum up as much demand in the trade market for a team that does need a quarterback so that they can go up and get him and you can get some value elsewhere. That's the old school nihilistic data scientist view on it. Obviously, there's more in play. There's politics. There's divisional rivalries. There's, the reality of who you have on your roster. And so there's all kinds of other dynamics that go into it. But that's what I view. I think it's probably the correct pick.
Andrew Berry, Browns general manager, came out and said they view Travis Hunter primarily as a wide receiver, but also had some other things to say that led a lot of people to draw a straight line between his comments and, yes, that's who they're taking. As you referenced, a bunch of reports that they're also fielding calls at 2. But I guess if we're in a space where it feels like a consensus that 1, that Cam is off the board, the draft starts at 2, what do you think the Browns do?
So as it stands now, I think they go with Travis Hunter. I think that Travis Hunter is certified the only can't-miss prospect in this draft. When you look at those same frame-by-frame, millisecond-by-millisecond AI grades that we at Sumer Sports called Sumer scores, he's elite both in coverage and receiving. Frankly, you're never going to probably see that ever again. I think Travis Hunter is the only can't-miss prospect, and I think they're fine if they go ahead and select him. But here's a note. As I said, the positional value at those positions is not the same as the quarterback position by definition. I don't even think they're actually betting on their evaluation of a guy like Shedeur Sanders or like Jackson Dart. I think they are solely betting on their availability models. There's only a couple of teams that really need quarterbacks. It seems like the Giants aren't interested. It seems like the Saints are not interested. And if their models are showing that perhaps they can wait until their pick at 33 to get a quarterback, I think they may go ahead, roll the dice, pick Travis Hunter, positional value to the wind, and start playing a little game of roulette, quarterback roulette, and hope that Shedeur Sanders or whatever quarterback they like. Very analytical organization the Browns are. I believe they're doing a lot of research into consensus big boards and into their scouting grades as well. It'd be difficult for me to believe, just given what is public, that they have anyone else other than Shedeur Sanders at 2. So I think they're really rolling the dice and seeing if they can get a quarterback down the line in the late first, trading back into the late first, or in the second round.
Every time Travis is asked about his NFL future, he's very specific about his desire to play on both sides of the ball. How do you think the Browns use him? What do you think that looks like?
Look, I think you got to do it. And I think in the data sphere, you just want more information. And when you have a player who can play both sides of the ball, let the snaps tell you where he's best at. I think you got to play him on both sides while he's still young, because if you have someone who can contribute on both sides, that's literally of one, maybe one of the best players of all time. By year 3, perhaps. He might be able to go just 3 years, and if he does that, he may be a Hall of Famer right there. If not, you can simply just stop playing him on defense or stop playing him on offense, and he can still be an elite player on either side of the ball. I am of the mind personally that you just get all the information you can as quick as possible and let him do both.
All right, going to number 3 now. As you referenced earlier, a lot of conversation about the Giants also fielding calls. And it's interesting because the Giants are one of those teams, and Sam, as I've told you before, I'm a lifelong suffering fan of the New York Jets, and we'll get there. But when you have as many holes as the Giants have, I mean, maybe you just go Abdul Carter. Maybe you don't think about it. There's some noise about Shedeur. They were out this way. The Giants were out in Colorado watching Shedeur work out last week. But I would completely understand if they wanted to trade down and then get a bevy more picks to try to fill a bunch of holes. But what do you think the New York Giants do at number 3?
So first, I think they evaluate their team. Abdul Carter will be the best player on the board, at least as the consensus is concerned. Here's an interesting bit about the Giants, though. They had one of the better fronts in the league last year. Excellent sack rate. Brian Burns played well when he was healthy. Dexter Lawrence played well. Okereke played pretty well at the linebacker position. And they had Kevon Thibodeau, who played all right. You know, he's one of the better defensive end twos in the league. And so I think that's where the analysis starts coming in. If you look at the expected value for an edge historically for defensive ends, it's really about around Kevon Thibodeau. So you probably have in terms of expected value. Again, maybe they know a little bit more than me, but I'm just looking at the historicals. You have 2 players that you can project over the next 2 or 3 years to be pretty similar in terms of production. One will be much cheaper than the other, but there's a much more uncertainty when it comes to drafting a player. So here's the gamble that they're going to make. If they take Abdul Carter, they're basically saying we would rather this year have 3 good edge rushers, and then next year let Kevon Thibodeau walk and have a cheaper version, again, on average, than Kevon Thibodeau. If they decide to go elsewhere, trade back, they're basically saying we know what Kevon Thibodeau is. There's not a ton of uncertainty there, and we would rather recoup value, and we don't really know if we're ready to compete. Maybe we don't know if Abdul Carter would make us a winning team year one. And I think both of those options are fairly clear. I think you probably lean to the more conservative way to do it if I'm the Giants, which would just be selecting Carter as one of the best players in the draft. But I, as an analyst, would certainly, fight hard for trading back and trying to get more value because I just don't know how much Abdul Carter is going to help this team become a playoff team.
So a little bit of a non sequitur here, but I wanted to ask you because we are high speed ahead. We're about, 26 hours and 15 minutes away from the draft, and 0 trades have been made involving first round picks, which isn't all that normal. Typically, there had at least been, a deal or 2 by now. Are you anticipating a busy night concerning the trade market? Do you think we're going to see a lot of movement? Jerry Jones came out yesterday. They've got number 12 and they've got 10 picks. And he's, I don't know, maybe he's just Jerry being Jerry, but he said they're trying to make a bunch of deals. Do you think we're going to see a lot of trades go down tomorrow?
So I think there's 2 items that are really or really 3, I guess. There's 3 items that are probably going to control this. Number 1, what happens with the quarterbacks? If the Browns don't select a quarterback and the Giants don't select a quarterback, I think the heat is going to be on teams that either want to trade back in, like the Giants or the Browns, or teams like the Steelers who sit at 21 and may not be able to wait to get a quarterback. So I think that's option 1. That could be probably 1, maybe 2 in the back half of the first round if people start getting hot on a guy like Jackson Dart. That could potentially be 2 trades. And on average, draft day, there's typically about 3 to 5 trades. So I'm trying to fill this up in my head. The second item, Ashton Genty. People have him as one of the best running back prospects in years. I've been hearing a lot of noise about James Gladstone and the Jaguars selecting him at 5. I think that may be smoke. And I think if we get around 5, a team who really wants to go get a running back, thinks they have the offensive line to support it, and think they can have a Saquon Barkley or Jahmyr Gibbs-like player, may want to go ahead and trade up to 5 before. A team like the Raiders in particular could use him. A team like the Bears certainly seem like they could use him. I think that's probably a 3rd trade. And then finally, in the middle of the rounds, I think a lot of people are going to get excited about edge rushers and tackles. Not a lot of guys who are certified edge rushers and tackles will be selected in rounds 2 and 3. I think as you get to the middle to the end, you'll start seeing some of the teams that performed really well, like the Commanders, the Eagles, the Bills, trade out of their spots to allow teams that need tackles or need edge rushers back into the first round, and then they'll snag their guys there. So that's kind of my expectation to the 3 to 5 trades that could happen, starting at about 5 with Ashton Genty, getting into the back half of the top 10 with the quarterbacks, and then finally throughout the middle, talking about jumping back in to kind of reach on a quarterback or select an edge or offensive tackle. I think that's the way it's going to break down.
Jackson Dart played his high school football about 18, 19 miles as the crow flies from where we're talking. It's been fun to watch him kind of evolve throughout his career after starting at SC and then transferring to Ole Miss. Good kid, good family, certainly a guy that is getting a lot of attention depending on who you ask or who you talk to. Nobody really knows where he'll go, but what's the buzz on Jackson Dart and what's a good fit for him, Sam?
Here's the summary. If he hits his first read, he's going to be immensely productive. After that, which you can go check this on SoonerSports.com, we have it color-coded to show you where he ranks among players in the NCAA last year. After that first read, he loves to scramble. One of the highest scramble rates in the NCAA last year, and also he was very productive. One of the highest EPA, expected points added per rush, guys last year. The problem is you can do that in college. Really difficult to do that at the next level when you got Myles Garrett, when you got some of these Eagles rushers, Dorrance Armstrong, Michael Parsons, all these excellent edge rushers tearing after you at 4.5 speed. You don't really see that game to game in college. Really difficult to rely on the scrambling that much. Now, we saw Jaden Daniels do that pretty well last year, even though his profile changed a little bit as he settled into that offense. But that's a real question mark for Jackson Dart. I think settling in with an offensive coordinator who puts him in a place to succeed, particularly on those first and second reads, which then further allows him to develop down the line, is something that's good. And frankly, I don't know if it's the best fit. I'm a Saints fan. I think Shedeur Sanders is probably a better prospect in terms of accuracy this year. But it makes sense for a guy like Kellen Moore, who had Jalen Hurts last year with a very similar background, a guy who wanted to hit his first read, especially given that was A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And then he was going to use his legs to make plays, and that took him all the way to the Super Bowl. Even though their passing offense did struggle, coached by Kellen Moore, it appears that the Saints are interested in Jackson Dart. I could see that being a pairing that makes sense, even though it might break my little Saints fan heart.
Fair enough. And since you brought up Shedeur, there's a lot of buzz around Shedeur, of course, because of, well, he's really good. And also he's Shedeur Sanders. He's Deion's kid. And obviously we are a Pac-12, former Pac-12 market, now Big 12 market. And Colorado is a school that we're all familiar with. And we've seen Shedeur and Travis up close. So you referenced the Saints. There's a lot of noise, Saints at 9. If he doesn't go off the board at 9 to the Saints, are we in danger of watching this kid fall?
I think we are. I'm putting together my mock draft tonight for tomorrow. I think I'm going to have him dropping a little bit. Again, I don't think this is necessarily a showing of his evaluation. In our data, he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in recent memory all across the field, and we've confirmed that on my Draft FM podcast with a couple of guys who chart every single throw, eye test, scouts. They understand that he's immensely accurate as well. Downside is sacks. And the opposite of Devin Dampier when we talked at the top, those down-to-down sacks can really kill drives. As a result, I think the drop, frankly, is probably occurring more due to the huffing and hawing about the horse and pony show coming to town and Sanders talking real loud and all this stuff. I don't like all that. I don't think it shows anything about his evaluation. I get upset that he's probably dropping for that reason. Do I understand it because of the politics? Maybe so. But it is what it is. I think the Steelers at 21 are probably the red zone for him, but I could see us being shocked of him maybe being selected third or someone trying to jump up if people start getting a little antsy about getting a quarterback in the first round.
All right, Sam, with the remaining few minutes we have, I'm going to ask you about teams specifically. We are a market without an NFL team, but we are a market with a lot of NFL fans. And it depends on, there are pockets of fans of the Broncos because of the proximity. But I want to ask you about the Niners. We have a lot of Niners fans here, and that's really because of Steve Young, who played his college ball at Brigham Young. And a lot of people continue to cheer for San Fran here in the market, and it's a big draft for them. They've got, I think, like 11 picks, and they've got number 11 in the first round. So how do you think San Fran approaches this draft process, and what are the holes they need to plug?
So going into this, I thought a hidden need of theirs might actually be the quarterback position. Brock Purdy has said that he wants to be the highest paid guy, or at least very close to it. And we've seen them move on from Jimmy Garoppolo in the past. I thought maybe that was a hidden need for them. It seems as if they're working that deal out. No big news has come out, but it seems like he's going to go to OTAs. So I think in the face of that, in the face of him getting a deal, you probably want to rebuild that offensive line. They let Aaron Banks go last year. I think they want to have Christian McCaffrey in a spot to succeed as he begins to age, and perhaps invest in a good offensive lineman. Kelvin Banks, I think if he's available, makes a lot of sense there. There's going to be a ton more offensive linemen in the first, second, and third rounds that perhaps they could go grab. But also on the flip side, I think adding a second edge rusher could be a good use of resources. They've lost a lot. Frankly, they've cut a lot from that team. A lot of, I guess you could say, fat as they viewed it. They let go in free agency. So there's a bunch of different spots they can go, but I expect offensive line to be the highest probability, even though there's a lot of other places that could be addressed.
I mentioned the Broncos, and for the first time in a while, Bronco fans have a reason to be optimistic after the rookie season with Bo Nix. They get all of their offensive linemen back, including former Ute Garrett Bowles. Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, who emerged as a wide receiver too, come back as well. Feels like running back might be something they look at. They've got 7 picks, including 20 in the first round. Not 20 picks in the first round. That would be ridiculous. They have number 20. But what do you think? What do you think Denver does throughout this draft process?
I think the target is running back, and I think the target is a pass-catching running back. Here's the question, though. Me as an analyst would recommend that they go with a premium position in the first round. If you draft a guy in the first round who's a running back, you better expect that he's going to be a top 10, top 5 player. That's a lot to ask given the historicals on the draft. However, looking at the specific running backs, this is believed to be an excellent running back class. A lot of people think it's between Omarion Hampton and Trey Henderson. I think Omarion Hampton is probably the better runner. I have questions about his pass protection ability and his receiving ability. Travion Henderson, maybe less of a runner, carried less of a workload last year, sharing the backfield with Quinshon Judkins at Ohio State, but has a better pass blocking pedigree and a better pass catching pedigree. I think it's probably going to be between those guys. I'm leaning Travion Henderson right now.
Kansas City Chiefs, their head coach is Andy Reid, BYU alum. And, obviously this is a team that doesn't necessarily have the same amount of worries that some others do. They're still going to be in the mix as they are every year with 15 under center. They have 8 picks. They have number 31 in the first round. What do you think Kansas City needs to come away with during this draft process?
I think they got to address the left side of that line. Joe Thuney is now a Chicago Bear. A lot of questions at the left tackle position. They drafted Kingsley Suamataia last year to try to be that guy. It seems like it didn't work out. Perhaps he'll start at left guard this year. We're able to get a guy from the 49ers, but it seems like they're going into this year with 2 backups last year at the left guard and left tackle position. Luckily, they're in a spot where they should be able to snag a guy that could be a tackle, particularly if there's some fallers. But like I mentioned, expect trades up for tackles. I think they may be in that zone. They did it last year to try to grab Xavier Worthy. I wouldn't be shocked if they trade up to grab a guy like Simmons out of Ohio State, the tackle, Josh Connerly, the tackle out of Oregon, or maybe even a guy like Gray Zabel, a swing guy who played tackle at North Dakota State, but will probably projects to be a guard at the next level. I'd expect that to be the thought process, perhaps trading up to try to get a certified tackle at the next level.
All right, before I set you loose, this didn't used to be the case, but proximity-wise, the closest pro football team to Salt Lake City now resides in Las Vegas with the Raiders and Pete Carroll, their new head coach. I feel like every time I read a Raiders draft primer, it's all about Ashton Genty, but of course they may need to trade up if they're going to grab them. But they do have 6, and they've got, I think, 9 total picks. What do the Raiders need to come away with from this draft process?
As I mentioned, I think Genty at anywhere, really, any running back in the first round could be a reach. I think if you're going to reach, it would be Genty. I question their defensive backfield. I think Will Johnson could be the answer, even though he's beginning to have injury rumors as of late. And I think really they could address a whole suite of things. Wide receiver could be an example. Maybe Ted McMillan falls to them. 5 and 6, Jaguars and Raiders is a big question mark for me right now. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to evaluate all the data, but it seems like Ted McMillan, Ashton Genty, or perhaps a cornerback like Will Johnson is the direction that they should go right now.
All right, Sam, where can people go get all your work? And obviously you'll be busy over the next 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, check us out at Sumer Sports on Twitter or at Sumer Sports on YouTube. We will be having a live draft show. Pull us up if you want to have data insights from me. GM, a guy who has sat in the seat, Thomas Dimitroff, our president, will also be in studio. He will be breaking down what it actually feels like, the pressure. I think we're probably the only place that you can get that. We'll also be having Sean Syed, who comes on this station quite a bit, breaking down the schemes, and Lindsey Rhodes will be driving the bus for us. It's going to be an excellent show. I ask you to tune in tomorrow during the draft, second screen with us.
Good stuff, Sam. Enjoy it, okay? We'll chat soon.
Appreciate you.
Sam Bruckhouse, Sumer Sports, stops by today, courtesy of IFA Country Stores. Any drive to the basket begins with the first step on the court. That's the ultimate power move. IFA Step 1 Crabgrass Preventer and their lawn food is the first choice to give your yard the healthy green look you admire. The neighbors will be green with envy. You can shop IFA online at ifa.coop or stop by one of their neighborhood stores today. All right, the Stanley Cup playoffs roll along. We're going to bring in Neil Smith coming up during the 3 o'clock hour. Chris Kamrani, Patrick Manning, a busy, busy show. But before we catch a break, we welcome in Jeff Fox from Pure Life Medical on a Wednesday. Jeff, how are you, sir?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm well. I appreciate the time. So, Pure Life Medical, you guys provide several services for people, but one of the big things you do is stem cell therapy. For people that are not familiar, Jeff, how does stem cell therapy work?
Yeah, well, this is one of the great things that's exciting to have specialists who really do well in this area. So stem cells are basically used for people with either, degenerative diseases or inflammation, people that are just really suffering. They've had an injury or they have osteoporosis or something like that. And there's a lot of different people that can benefit from this. And we've got providers here in clinic who have got over a decade of experience doing these sorts of things, treating thousands of patients. And so we have a lot of great solutions for people.
Jeff, how do you know if you need or if you could benefit from stem cell therapy?
Yeah, I think there's a number of groups that would be most interested in this. If you've had recent athletic injuries, this can speed up your healing. If you have degenerative diseases like osteoporosis, joint pain, neuropathy, things like that, we can help do some restoring in that area. People with chronic inflammatory diseases like long COVID, Lyme's disease, can also benefit from this. There are some people that just want to extend their lives and be as healthy as they can. They're biohackers. They're trying to fight aging, basically, and there's a lot of great applications in that area. And there's two last people that might be interested in this. One is people that have had either degenerative disease or trauma to the brain. We can actually deliver to that area too. And the last one is aesthetics. It can actually make you look better in both facials and hair regrowth and things like that.
All right, Jeff, how can people go about getting a consultation? I'm sure we have a lot of listeners with a lot of questions.
Yeah, we can give you all the answers. And so all you have to do is just give us a call at Pure Life Medical in Cottonwood Heights or Layton, Utah. And just give us a call. We'll get you scheduled for that free consultation, set aside some time, answer all your questions, and see if it's right for you.
All right, guys, if you're in need for red light, green light, blue light therapy, stem cell therapy, cryo, or maybe you're experiencing some hormonal imbalance or you want to lose some weight before the summer, they do it all, and they do it well. Go to the Pure Life Medical in Cottonwood Heights or Layton today. Tell them I sent you, and you'll get a free consultation. Information is online at purelifemedical.com. Jeff, thanks for the time, my friend.
Thank you so much.
All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. A little Stanley Cup hockey coming up on the other side with Neil Smith. Then we'll bring in Chris Kamrani for some college football. We'll do a little golf with Patrick Manning. We're back to some NBA later on a busy Wednesday show. It's good to have you with us. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. All right, we got Chris Camerani live in studio for an hour. We'll do some college football with CK as the transfer portal window continues to be open and continues to cause a lot of consternation around here for a lot of fans that are upset. We'll get to the NBA stuff later on with the playoffs rolling along. We're going to do a little golf with Patrick Manning, but the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs are going on right now. It's an off season for the Utah Hockey Club, so we'll bring in Neil Smith on a Wednesday afternoon to break it all down. Neil, happy Wednesday, sir. How are you?
Happy Wednesday. I'm doing well, thanks, Spence. How about you?
I'm great. So is this time of year put a little wind in your sails? I mean, there's really nothing quite like the Stanley Cup playoffs, yeah?
Oh, yeah, and the unexpected happens every year in different places at different times. And the first round is always one of my favorites because you just don't know what's going to happen.
So let's just start big picture. Your biggest surprise so far. Now, we are still very, very early, and a couple of series have only played one game. We've got 2 games in the books in some of the other series, but anything stand out as far as a surprise, just kind of storyline throughout the early parts of the playoffs?
Well, I think there's been 2 things. First of all, Minnesota beating Vegas last night in Vegas quite handily, and going from a team who didn't score much, they are always the under, to a team that once they got Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek and Boldy all playing together, now all of a sudden they're putting the puck in the net, and they eliminated Jack Eichel, the best player on Vegas. So they won that game handily. And then the other thing that surprised me was the shellacking that Florida gave Tampa in game 1 of that series, which was last night. It was skill versus, determination. And determination won out with the Florida Panthers.
Of all the series, which one is, I'll say, the most intriguing, the most entertaining? Which one has your attention more than any of them?
I think either Ottawa and Toronto, where Toronto is up 2-0 because that's the Battle of Ontario, and that's where I'm from, or the Florida matchup with the Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning, because they're both Stanley Cup contenders, but one of them's got to go away after the first round. So I find those 2 things real exciting. Winnipeg and the Blues. Winnipeg was able to take the 2-0 lead. Very hard to come back from that for St. Louis, but they nevertheless put up a real good fight so far. But I'd say that the most intriguing to me, and then I should say you've also got Edmonton and L.A., where L.A. had a 4-goal lead and got it erased by Edmonton, but then won in overtime in game 1. So that's also intriguing. And Spence, this is the 5th year in a row, if you can believe it, the 5th year in a row that the first round has had the Edmonton-L.A. matchup.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it had been 5 years. I knew it was back-to-back years. I read that earlier. I didn't realize it had been 5 years. Geez, let me, all of those series certainly correct answers. But the Stars Avalanche series, of course, it's out in our neck of the woods. It's another series where there's going to be a really good team that goes home, and first 2 games have been really good. It's tied 1 game apiece. How do you see this one playing out?
Well, I'm giving Colorado the edge because Colorado's gotten healthy at the right time. And unfortunately for Dallas, they've gotten injured at the wrong time. So they lost their top goal scorer in Jason Robertson. They had already lost Heiskanen, their best defenseman, Mikko Heiskanen. And so it doesn't look like those guys might make it back in time. And Colorado is really strong. And Gabriel Landeskog, the captain of Colorado, whose last game was hoisting the Stanley Cup in 2022, is been going to play tonight, according to his coach. So he hasn't played since that 2022 Stanley Cup, and his return is tonight.
3 years away from the game. I mean, that's a pretty exciting storyline. I want to pan back a little bit and look at this thing from more of a macro viewpoint. And it's always fun to hear you educate us on all things NHL, as it's new to Salt Lake City. And, in other sports, there are other superlatives and cliches about what wins in the postseason. From a hockey standpoint, when you go about your business of trying to build a team that is built for the playoffs, what are some of the dynamics that lead to success? Just generally speaking, what leads to success in playoff hockey?
I think that the pack mentality is one thing where, you've got one guy after the next coming at the other team, and you're not based on skill, but you can play it any which way. You can play skill if you have to, but you can also play, that very physical style, because the playoffs do get extremely physical when you see the same guys every other night for 2 weeks. It gets really intense, and you've got to be strong enough to be able to stand up for that. Florida, who won the Cup last year, has gotten healthy right at the right time. Matthew Tkachuk came back last night, first game back, 2 goals and an assist, and hasn't played for 20-something games, missed 20-something games since the Four Nations. He's been out since the Four Nations, came back and got 2 goals and an assist last night in their win over Tampa.
All right, let's move over to the games that are going on tonight. Let's get a little preview. We got the Canadiens and the Capitals. Game 1, Ovechkin, 2 goals, assisted on the other Caps tally, the oldest player in Stanley Cup playoff history to factor in all of his team goals with a minimum of 3. So this is going to be a barn burner tonight. Washington leads 1-0. What are you expecting to see between Montreal and Washington tonight?
Well, I was really impressed with the way Montreal came back in that game. They sort of seemed to have stage fright in the first 2 periods, but then the third period, they dominated. They pushed it into overtime, and Ovechkin got the overtime goal. As you said, during the regular season, there was no comparison between Washington and Montreal, but Montreal has got nothing to lose. And I think tonight, I would be surprised that Washington can take a 2-0 lead on them the way that Montreal played the other night. They're young. They're very aggressive. And as I said, they got nothing to lose. No one expected them to even make the playoffs this year.
Who has, one of the things you always talk about, in football, quarterback, the most important position. But, when it comes to the most important position in team sports, I think most people would still side on quarterback. But you do hear a lot of people talk about goalies and hot goalkeepers at the right time can lead teams to Stanley Cups. We've seen it before. Who are the best goalies in the playoffs, Neil?
Well, Bobrovsky for Florida has to be number one since he did win the Cup last year, and he's starting for them, and they won their first game. Vasilevsky, who's won 2 Stanley Cups for Tampa, didn't look good last night, but I can tell you he'll turn that around and start playing well. The Toronto has got, for the first year in a long time, has gotten superb goaltending out of Anthony Stolarz, who was with the Panthers as the backup last year, but now is the number 1 in Toronto. You've got to have a good goaltender to go anywhere in the playoffs because the intensity level is so high. You don't have to have a superstar like back in my day when you either had to have Mike Richter or Marty Brodeur or Patrick Waugh, but you just have to have a good goalie. Aiden Hill in Vegas has won the Stanley Cup, and he's not a household name. So if I was saying who was the best guys, it's Vasilevsky and Bobrovsky for sure. And then it goes down from there. Not very far down, but those I think are the 2 top guys.
You already referenced that you like Colorado because they're getting healthy at the right time. Series is deadlocked at 1. What do you think happens tonight?
I think that they're probably going to win tonight. And Landeskog, if he comes back, that's going to give them a huge mental boost, and the building will be buzzing. Dallas I don't think Dallas has enough. I just don't. I like their lineup when it's healthy, but it's not healthy right now. And with Jason Robertson out and Mikko Heiskanen, I just think Colorado will be too much.
You already referenced the comeback, 6-5 victory, Game 1. Kings became the 4th team in Stanley Cup history to blow a 4-goal lead and then win in regulation. What do you think happens tonight in L.A., Edmonton, L.A. Kings?
Edmonton's got Evander Kane coming back. Now, that's not headline news, but that's certainly a different ingredient that you put into your lineup. And I think Edmonton will even the series up tonight. It's hard for me to believe that Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and Evan Bouchard and Zach Hyman and all these other huge players they've got will go home down 0-2. But it could happen. The Kings are a great home team, but they almost blew it the other night. It was amazing to watch how the Kings sort of fell apart there, but were able to solidify the win at the end.
Since this was our only opportunity to catch up with you this week, let's get some thoughts on the games that we played tomorrow. Panthers Lightning, you already referenced you like this series an awful lot. Florida leads 1-0. This will be in Tampa. What do you think happens tomorrow? I guess I'll say afternoon between these two teams.
Yeah, the first game in Tampa was one-sided. I think that Tampa will make adjustments. I don't think Florida will be able to blow them out like 6-2 like they did in the first game. But Tampa's got their hands full with Florida. Whoever plays Florida is going to have their hands full because these guys they play playoff hockey all year long. So when the playoffs come, they're used to it. That's the way they play. So that'll be a very intense matchup.
We'll move over now to another series that you like an awful lot based off of where you are from. We're all from somewhere. Maple Leafs Senators. That will be tomorrow. That is 5 o'clock Mountain Time, ESPN 2. Toronto leads 2-0. Can Ottawa get back into it?
I think Ottawa can get a win. I don't think they're going to win both games in Ottawa. I think they're going to win one of them, which would put them down 3-1, which would mean that Toronto's going to win the series either in 5 or 6 or 7. But Ottawa's a good, feisty young team. Haven't been in the playoffs for many years, so this is their first exposure. Brady Tkachuk, Matthew's brother, Matthew Tkachuk, that I talked about in Florida. Brady plays, he's the captain of Ottawa, had his first taste of playoff hockey in his career in this series. So they're all new to it. Being down 2-0, though, to Toronto is not a good place to be.
Golden Knights Wild. That will be tomorrow, 7 o'clock. That's on TBS in Minnesota. Deadlocked at 1 apiece. As they go as they go to Minnesota, what do you think happens tomorrow night?
I think it's going to be a toss-up. I really do. I was really impressed with Minnesota. Vegas ended the season way ahead of Minnesota, but Minnesota's gotten healthy. They really played well in that game last night, and nothing would surprise me. They're back on home ice, but you know what? Jack Eichel's not going to go very long with no points, and he's got none to this point. So we'll see. I can't give you a winner on that one. I just want to see it.
Winnipeg was historic all year with their net and the best team out this way in the Western Conference. Can the Blues at least make this interesting?
I think the same as I said for Ottawa. They're down 0-2 going home. 86% of the teams that have a 2-0 lead win the series. I think that the Jets will win this series. I don't think the Jets will win both games at Enterprise Center in St. Louis. I think St. Louis will take one of them. And it's about the same analysis, Spence, that I gave you for Ottawa and Toronto. I think Winnipeg's clearly the better team, but Ottawa is feisty and trying hard to battle a giant.
Of all the teams that did not make the playoffs, which team surprised you the most? Who's the best team not involved in the tournament?
You know, it's interesting. I was talking about this today with somebody, and in the East, the best team, I think, of the teams that didn't make it are the Buffalo Sabres. But because they're so messed up, their talent can't come through, and they missed the playoffs again for the 14th straight year. But if you looked at their talent, I think they've got better talent than the Red Wings or the Columbus Blue Jackets and so on. So that's what I think on that side. On the other side, on the Western side, the Utah side, Calgary had a spectacular year. Vancouver had a spectacularly bad year, and Utah made up some ground, as we've talked about. But I think that Calgary surprised me, and they've got a real good goaltender, and they will be right in there in the mix. You can mark this down if you want for next year's conversations. Calgary and Utah will be fighting for a spot next year, fighting each other for a spot.
You know what I'm just realizing, and I don't have a question. I'm just going to say it into this microphone to get your reaction. Boston Bruins, Chicago Blackhawks, Detroit Red Wings, New York Rangers, Pittsburgh Penguins, your old New York Islanders. There are a lot of teams that we're accustomed to seeing, like banner-carrying teams for pro hockey, that are not in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Like I said, I don't have a question. It's kind of interesting, though. Those are big brands.
And let me give you a fact that this is the first time in history that the 4 U.S.-based original 6 teams being the Rangers, Chicago, Boston, and Detroit, have all been out of the playoffs. All four of the American-based original six are missing the playoffs for the first time ever. And you're right, Pittsburgh's been out for a couple of years now, but they've certainly still got Crosby and Malkin and so on, and we're used to seeing them. The New York Islanders, of course, had their heyday long ago, but Boston Bruins were only 2 years removed from setting not just a franchise record of wins and points, a league record of wins and points just 2 years ago, and now the bottom's fallen out on them.
Pretty wild to consider. All right, Neil, before I set you loose, just a thought on the Utah Hockey Club. And, of course, I've already asked you about what they need to add and what Bill Armstrong could do. But we had some postseason media with Bill Armstrong and Coach Torney. They held exit interviews, and now the players go on their ways. Just so for our fans around here, what is this time of year like for front offices that are not involved in the Stanley Cup playoffs, namely the Utah Hockey Club?
Well, I think Bill Armstrong's having scouting meetings, may go over to the World Championships and look at that, and look at the best players over there. Definitely looking at high-end junior talent, college talent, people that are going to be in the entry draft. He's going to be going with his scouts to see that. So they're going to be preparing, and they're going to have lots of time to do it. They're going to be preparing for the entry draft. And they got a lot of picks. They're going to be preparing for free agency, seeing who's available. So they've got a lot of time. That's what you do in the off season. You study what's out there. You already know what you need and what you think can be replaced because you've watched 82 games. But this is a time when I can tell you Bill Armstrong's not spending a lot of nights at home right now.
A lot of new hockey fans out here, Neil. How can they go find your podcast?
Well, go find it on any podcast platform. If you can get it on Spotify or Apple or Amazon or any of them or YouTube, NHL Wraparound, and we're doing a Stanley Cup date. How do you like that plan? We're in Stanley Cup date every day. And so the little thing will come out telling everybody what happened the night before and where everything stands. And we're having a lot of fun at it. And I think a lot of people could learn things from the podcast, not just from me, certainly, but from the guests that we have on the show.
Great time of year, my friend. Thank you for your time, and have a great week. Enjoy it, okay?
Yeah, thank you, Spence. You too.
All right, Neil Smith stops by today, courtesy of our friends at IFA Country Stores. It's time now to start thinking about your lawn, and any drive to the basket begins with the first step. And on the court, that's the ultimate power move. IFA Step 1 Crabgrass Preventer plus their lawn food is the first choice to give your yard the healthy green look you admire. The neighbors will be green with envy. Shop IFA online at ifa.coop or stop by one of their neighborhood stores today. All right, coming up next, we'll do some college football. We'll do a little RSL, a bunch of different stuff with Christopher Kamrani, one of our favorite guests, typically a Friday staple. I'm out on Friday this week, though. We'll let you know who's going to be in the saddle and make sure that you guys give your attention to them. So CK live in studio, then we'll do a little golf with Patrick Manning. We'll get back to the NBA playoffs and some college and pro football on the eve of the NFL draft during the 5 o'clock hour of the radio show. So don't go anywhere on a Wednesday afternoon. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. feel like I'm in like South Beach on the set of Scarface back in the 1980s. We're doing 80s one-hit wonders for the next hour because Chris Combrani is live in studio. All right, this was your choice. Take us through the process.
Well, like this song, I'm a one-hit wonder as well.
You are not. Don't say that.
Vice City.
Vice City.
This is what it's from. I mean, like that. This is the first time it really came onto my radar.
Okay.
Back when I used to play video games 20 years ago.
So like Grand Theft
Yes.
Auto Vice City.
Correct.
It does have a little Scarface,
Yeah, for sure.
South Beach feel.
Early 80s. Yeah. Seems like the vibes were probably high back then.
Well,
and there's no.
Go ahead.
You see what I did there?
Go ahead. The vibes were very high. I didn't mean to interrupt you. It may have been the cocaine, but since we're in the space, and this is what we do every time you join us, not cocaine. We're not in the cocaine space, okay? But since we're in this space, best gangster movie of all time.
Ooh. Goodfellas.
Goodfellas.
Most rewatchable for me is Goodfellas. Godfather 2 up there.
Do we have to say Departed for John Paul?
We can. Casino's really up there.
Casino is underrated.
We have to say Casino for John Paul.
Yes.
Because of his place. He gets the chicken parm.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. I'm making the Italian hand gesture now.
Yeah.
John Paul used to, before we do the show, he would get up at like 8 and watch Departed.
Mm-hmm.
Because you work in the afternoon, at night you have games. He would like watch 3 or 4 hour movies like in the morning.
He's getting into character.
That's a weird habit, man. Untouchables, Kevin Costner.
It's good. Sean Connery was good.
You're the man now, dog. What's the Scarface take?
I was. I mean, it was cool to like when you were a teenager, young adult.
Okay.
It's still good. I mean, Pacino's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle Pfeiffer's awesome. A ridiculous storyline. But to me, it's got to be Goodfellas. Like the Wonder shots for John Paul, like the soundtrack, the Ray Liotta voiceovers, all of it is just for John Paul.
It is. So, Rolling Stones list. Number 1, Godfather Part 2.
Yeah.
Number 2, Goodfellas.
Yep.
Number 3, The Godfather, the original. Number 4, Once Upon a Time in America, which I've never seen. Number 5, Public Enemy, Shout Out, classic gangster movie. Number 6, Eastern Promises. Number 7, City of God. Have you ever seen City of God?
Absolutely.
Phenomenal movie. If you've never seen that one, City of God is worth a watch.
I saw it when it was at Sundance, like in 2003 or 4.
Oh, wow, that's
R.I.P. Sundance.
Indeed.
Eastern Promises, also very good. Viggo Mortensen playing the most yoked, scary, tatted Russian mob hitman.
Mm-hmm.
And he would just do this to people.
Okay.
That means like lights out.
I do know what that means. I've never seen it. Boys in the Hood. Underrated.
I mean, are we talking about mob movies or like organized crime?
Good line of delineation. This is the Rolling Stones list of the best gangster movies. Departed is at 15. Can I offer up Snatch? Brad Pitt.
Yeah, absolutely. You like dogs? Sure.
What's up?
Dogs.
What's up with those sausages? 5 minutes. It was 5 minutes, 10 minutes ago. Guy Ritchie, phenomenal. Obviously, Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels. Guys, movie before Snatch. You know what? I was going to ask you to come up with a trivia question to give away golf. Do you want to just ask for somebody's favorite gangster movie?
Yeah.
Porter, what's your of all the gangster movies, mob movies, whatever the definition is? Do you have a favorite?
That is a hard one. I mean, I lean towards when you're talking like gangster mob. I lean towards like the Wild West movies. That's organized crime. It's down that lane. But I might have to go with. I might have to go with The Godfather as well, as if we're going down the kind of the mob gangster route.
All right, so 877-353-0700. Text in your favorite mob movie, your favorite gangster movie. And the reward today, Chris, this is not intentional, but it's ironic. We are giving away a free round of golf to Wasatch Mountain State Park.
Which course, though?
It does not say. And that's a good question.
Mountain course.
We need to get a clarifier there.
Both of them are awesome, though. Porter's saying the mountain course.
Okay, then okay. People better get their answers in quick. We love the mountain course.
We love the mountain course.
I mean, no offense, lake course is great.
Yeah.
But mountain course is where it really happens.
I got to get up there. That is God's country up there, and the site of the original Trav. Okay, so let's be clear. Wasatch State Park holds a soft spot to all of us.
Correct.
So 877-353-0700, your favorite mob movie, your favorite gangster movie, and then maybe make Porter laugh because he's the one that's going to choose. Shout out to Trav, the original Trav. How do you feel about Sundance leaving our market, by the way, since you brought it up?
Bummer, man.
Yeah.
For a state and a governing body that is obsessed with toting the financial successes, I believe the governor last week at the Miller unveiling was bragging about the state's GDP.
Mm-hmm. The EBITDA.
Correct.
For finance bros out there.
The fact that we've lost outdoor retailer and Sundance in like a 5-year span, not ideal. Not ideal. And I understand that there are growth in other places. You know, the Silicon Slopes, people are elated over it, and we're having more Lego apartment buildings popping up left and right. But Sundance, man, you needed a little bit of a curveball. You needed a slider to what is very paramount at this state and the culture, and we're losing it to not arguably, I can say this, a cooler place. Boulder's cooler. Little more travel for folks who are going. You know, Denver International is 45 minutes. It's not as easy to get to Park City, but yeah, you can take an L. We're taking L's a lot lately, Spence.
Losing Sundance, but gaining more trucks and Teslas. Is that what it comes down to? More trucks and Teslas, less Sundance Film Festival.
Or Tesla trucks.
Or Tesla trucks. Good call. There are conversations about a replacement festival coming. Maybe a little Forrest Gump. Maybe a little Avatar. We're just going to do Avatar, bro. All right, inside joke. I do have to do the read. Giving away golf as we're doing every day. It's our Festival of the Tees. ESPN Festival of Tees powered by the Utah Golf Association. Each day of spring, ESPN 700 is giving away rounds of golf from the best courses in the state. Listen to the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell, the Sean O'Connell Show from 11 to 2, and this little program, The Drive with Spence Checketts from 2 to 6. For your chance to win each day from ESPN 700 and the Utah Golf Association, details can be found on ESPN700sport.com. All right, CK's with us for an hour, so we'll save some college football, some transfer portal. You guys are mad at each other online. We'll get to that coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. But while we're here with, about 10, 15 minutes in this segment, let's do a little RSL. John Kimball, the president of the club, hopped on the program yesterday to break the news that the Diego Luna red card has been rescinded. And John asked, as I brought him in, and I just see kind of out of the corner of my eye, Diego standing over the player. It looked bad in real time. I'm like, did he kick him? And is he kind of rubbing it in? And then you see the replay and you're like, dude, he didn't even touch him. That's not even a yellow. But this is pretty rare that this happens. So RSL, they go through the appeals process and it actually was approved. And the red card was rescinded, was not even awarded a yellow, and he'll be playing on the weekend against San Diego. What'd you make of this?
I think Kurt was on your show a couple weeks ago, and he said that he's not a fan of VAR.
Correct.
Kurt Schmidt, RSL technical director. And I disagree with that sentiment, but now I kind of see where he's coming from. Like, if the point is to get it right and you're going to stop the game, you're going to slow everybody down, you're going to wait for somebody from another state to patch into your headset and say, go check it out, and then to waste more time and then to still get it wrong, yikes, man. And this is not specific to MLS. I mean, we've seen VAR go wrong at big levels over in Europe. We've seen it go wrong in the World Cup. It is a byproduct of human error, which I'm always going to be a proponent of. It is the reality of it. But you can have human error without VAR. You can't have human error with VAR because otherwise, either you're incompetent or you're just doubling down and you are refusing to correct a wrong. I think it was hard to slow down because Luna moved so quick and got his leg out of that scissor hold so fast that it could have looked like he stomped him while he was getting his feet out.
I agree.
But they showed replay over and over, once his foot was cleared, he didn't step on him. So to your point, it shouldn't have been a yellow card. It should have been play on. It should have been, hey, you guys come talk to me. Let's keep it cool. Let's move on and, play on. I don't know if Diego being involved in the last 29, 30 minutes of that match changes the outcome. I think RSL ended up outshooting them like 24-2. that's another topic that I'm sure we'll get to. But the league did the right thing. Like, you can't protect mistakes at that level, especially considering red cards aren't only the ejection from the current game, but an ensuing suspension from the following.
It's very punitive. I mean, I can remember before I even knew anything about soccer at all, because as I've told you before, prior to bringing the club here in 2004, maybe a World Cup here or there, I never watched, and I was very much anti-soccer. I've told you the story when my father flew into town and said, I want to take you to lunch. And we went to lunch, and he said, here's my idea. I want to bring soccer to Salt Lake. I'm like, what are you doing? What a bad idea. I mean, I told him not to do it. He was right. I was wrong. Of course, that's how it goes. But when I first heard about what a red card was, I'm like, wait a second. He sits the rest of this match, and he can't play the next game? Like, They don't do that in the NFL or the NBA. You get ejected, and you have to sit the next game. Like,
it depends. It is.
Well,
I
sure.
If you're talking a blanket statement in soccer, it is different from other sports.
Yeah, and yes, there are levels. I mean, if you run our test of fan, you're going to miss some time. But if you just get ejected for arguing with a ref or a hard flagrant foul, unless it's really egregious, you're rarely suspended. In soccer, a red means you're out the next game. And, Chris, for a team that's hemorrhaging points, losing their best player in Diego Luna, even, just for one game, felt pretty harsh. So, were you surprised that the league did this? I'll tell you what, I was. I was very surprised.
I don't know if there was precedent for it. I feel like in the NBA there have been times where they've rescinded technical fouls that end up accumulating in a suspension.
Yes, yeah, that's true. They did to Luka, I think, last year.
Yeah, but it's very rare.
Yeah.
I understand the league's desire to protect its referees, but again, I think the fact that they went to VAR and the referee still went with the red card, I think that was even that much more damning.
So for a team that at this point has 3 wins through 9 games, I don't really have the stomach for that it's all the ref's fault. However, I will present this to you. Piol's red at home against Dallas. We talked about that the week after it happened. That felt a little harsh based off of the entire flow of the actual play, where the Dallas player probably should have been called for a foul before that. The PK in that game was a bad call against Dallas. Mukhtar from Nashville, no big deal. I've got MLS knowledge. Clearly
Lovitz
initiated the...
It was Lovitz, but I got you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But Mukhtar is on Nashville.
Wait. No, Mukhtar drew the penalty.
Oh, Mukhtar drew the penalty, yes. I thought you were talking about the elbow to Mark Zook.
I was getting there. Now, I'm glad you said that because I didn't know the dude's name, but that clearly was a red. Mm-hmm. He hit Dom with the elbow. Then Mukhtar initiates the contact against Nelson and falls. PK there. There is, and look, we don't really hear from players in that post-media scrum at America First Field, and Alex Catranas had some things to say. So while I'm not going to lay their lack of results at the feet of the officials, if I'm with the club right now, I'm feeling a little bit hard done.
You are, and I think you're feeling hard done because of the current form you're in. I think if you're sprinkling in some draws and a win, if you have some semblance of peaks and valleys, I think it's a little easier to stomach, but right now you are very much existing in a valley. And the season's so long, man. I want to say that it'll eventually even itself out. I just think there has been – this is just compounding on top of the way too early CONCACAF Champions Cup exit to a team that you should have beat. The fact that they – seems like they failed to upgrade the roster necessarily in the spring transfer window, and they're just not a very good team right now, and they're not playing an attractive style of soccer. They are good from one box to another. They're really good, but once RSL is tasked with defending either in emergency scenarios or in real time, not great. And once they get into the opponent's final third, yikes, man. I mean, like it is dire straits, and I don't know if there's going to be a solution on the horizon.
All right, so, excuse me, we will now move over to the primary transfer window that closes today. So, essentially, you just have to have some paperwork across the final, the final dotted line in order to add pieces. You don't actually have to announce everything today, so maybe we'll hear some things that we have not heard so far. But we will talk about the player that, according to our guy, Tom Bogert, RSL has added a player. Then we'll talk about the player that they're not going to add. So we'll move over now to William. Is it Agata?
Got it. Nailed it.
I was afraid the G might be silent. You never know. I call him Willie.
Yeah.
No big deal. 25 years old. He is a striker. He comes to RSL from Sporting KC. Let's see. Has he played much this year? Doesn't look like he's played a ton this year. I don't know anything about him. What do you know about the player that RSL has, according to Tom? This is the player that they're bringing in.
A Band-Aid, safe to say. I mean, this is a what was your guy who ended up in Brazil? Elias?
Manuel?
Manuel.
Yeah, Elias Manuel, yeah.
Same type of thing.
Gotcha.
This is a Band-Aid, if there ever was a Band-Aid. It is a guy who scored goals for some of the worst Sporting Kansas City teams in recent memory. And they needed to do something, but clearly they had a plan B after your guy, who will never get to see the number 9 shirt, Robert Bozanic, after that transfer apparently has fallen through in epic fashion.
So Willie, our guy, our new RSL striker, this year he has played in 6 games with 1 start, 96 minutes played, 5 as a sub, with 0 goals and 0 assists.
Yep.
So there we go.
Yep.
Looks like he has 6 career goals for Sporting KC. If I'm reading this correctly.
No, I think he's somewhere around like 20-ish.
23. He had 6 last year.
There you go.
My bad. All right. So 25-year-old striker on the way. Willie Agata, my guy Willie. So to your point, let's move over now to the player that was announced that had agreed to terms, but now this deal is off. So as of yesterday, and I talked to John about this, I talked to you about this last week, the reports were RSL was bringing in Bozanic, from this Portuguese club that apparently is not necessarily operated at the highest level with business acumen. So the deal is off, according to Tom. And Robert was here, toured the facilities.
Passed his physical.
Passed his physical. They apparently had agreed to terms. They were just waiting for the signature on the dotted line. Educate us a little bit. What's the deal with this club that apparently is really tough to do business with?
Well, Boa Vista, for the MLS sickos, is a club that originally signed a young, talented outside back named Reggie Cannon from FC Dallas, rose through the American ranks, and proceeded to not pay Reggie his wages while he was over there. And there have been multiple reports of Boa Vista not paying transfer fees for players, and just basically is a club that you shouldn't try to get into business with in the first place. And I think that's the 30,000 view point of this, Spence, is like clearly RSL got desperate enough to find a player that they liked at a price point that met what they were currently shopping at. And unfortunately, it seemed to be at a club that has very difficult financial situations. I think Tom reported at some point in the last couple of weeks that like they forgot to pay their electrical bill at their training facility.
Come
recently.
on.
I'm not kidding.
Oh my God.
So like, listen, this is a byproduct of not being able to secure a transformational player when you need one. This is something that should have probably been tackled in the winter time, or at least had a head start. And I know there is a multitude of layers to this conversation. This isn't on any one person. I think this is a byproduct of having your star player decide he needed to go in the blink of an eye, having the pseudo Band-Aid replacement decide he wanted to go to Brazil. You're coming up against a transfer window that didn't go your way. You have ownership change floating overhead. But Robert Bozanic is not the type of player you need to necessarily break the bank for. Like, he is a guy that, by all accounts, was going to come in for anywhere from like $2 to $3 million. And he's, a young guy, gets some caps for the Slovakian national team, but hasn't scored a ton of goals. And this is what I've been telling you. Like, RSL, if they're going to kind of rediscover the flair and the style and the success that they had last year, they have to go out and find somebody and pay a lot of money in order to get them to come here and want to be the tip of the spear. But Bozanic isn't the guy that you should necessarily overpay for. I've been told that Boa Vista's executives changed the terms last minute. Tom reported the same thing. So, like, what are they like? Why? I get that you're up against it at the 11th hour, but I think this is a learning lesson for everybody involved that you got to figure out who you're dealing with and who you're getting into business with when you're up against such a tight window.
Let me clean this up a little bit. So William, again, I call him Willie.
Willie Goals.
Willie, is that what they call him? Willie
That's
Goals?
what you're going to call him now.
Who was the?
Who was that?
Who was? Oh, it was Johnny Menendez when Trey was like, "We're going to call him Johnny Goals,"
Yeah.
and he literally scored a goal. So I started to call him Johnny Goal, and that pissed Trey off because then they had to get rid of him. So Willie Goals. You know what? We'll roll with it.
I like it.
His career in Sporting Kansas City last year was his best year. He played 32 games, started 20, had 10 goals, 3 assists. For his career, 4 years in Kansas City, 21 goals, 5 assists, 64 games played, 38 starts. So it appears that he's more of like is there an Anderson Julio parallel, like a fast dude that comes in off the bench?
I haven't watched that much of Willie Goals, to be honest with you, but he strikes me as the type of player that probably had an Anderson-type role at Sporting Kansas City.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm smiling because we're calling him Willie Goals. He hasn't scored this year. It's like when everybody called Royce O'Neal Buckets.
Well, that was his Twitter handle.
Yeah, but he couldn't shoot.
Self-anointed. He got a little better.
Yeah, but he still couldn't shoot.
Yeah.
It was Royce. It was like Bucket O'Neal, Johnny Goal. Speaking of, Willie Goals. But speaking of Johnny, let's move over to the other rumor. Johnny Russell, who looks like he enjoys himself a pint. He's a Scottish player who played at Derby County and then played at Sporting Kansas City. Let's see, for about 6 years, but has not played. He's been without a club this
Correct.
year.
Yeah, he was one of their best players for a long time.
Okay.
He was there while they were still pretty good, and then he was there when they got pretty bad.
Okay, so according to Tom, RSL is in talks to bring in Johnny Russell.
35-year-old guy, left-footed winger. Once upon a time was one of the best wingers in the league. Looks like he can enjoy a pint.
He's Scottish.
I've been seeing what kind of form or fitness level Johnny Russell is currently in, but when you haven't played for a while, maybe he needs to get into the gym. I don't know. Looking at this window, this team clearly needs some leaders, some voices in the locker room, because watching this team, it's like watching a bunch of passengers, man. Like, nobody wants to take the game by the scruff of the neck.
Good way to describe it.
Diego does sometimes, but I think if you're the opposition, you do your best to just try to take him out of it tactically. And then other than that, who is going to impose? Who's going to impose themselves? Who's going to instill fear in the opposing defense? Like, Rafa Cabral has been great, but like, there's a reason why a lot of people don't give goalkeepers the armband, because they're so oftentimes 60 yards away. Like, you need somebody in the thick of things, and I'm not saying you need a Kyle Beckerman type personality. Or
Happy birthday to the captain, by the way. It's Kyle's birthday today.
Is it?
It is.
How old is Kyle now? I think he's a little bit older than me. 38, 39.
He's probably looking at 40.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's on it, but he's probably looking at it.
You don't need a Kyle. You need a bunch of like grab-a-boys. You need a Beltran.
Ooh, Dirty Ned, my guy.
You need a Chris Winger. Like, you need somebody to lead the locker room, and they're a young team, man. Listen, they're a very young team, and I would describe it like it's a team that's filled with passengers and nobody wants to get behind the wheel.
So the transfer window closes today, Chris. The forwards will be Ari Pio, Willie Goals, my guy, Forrester, who I think is now with the Monarchs.
Yep.
Our guy Berea. So are they screwed? I mean, is the season lost? If these are the strikers, we've seen nothing to indicate anyone on the roster is able to finish consistently. Forrester has good physical traits. The touch has been off, and he's a
developmental guy right now.
I think Ari is too.
Yeah, you can make that argument, yeah.
So, like, what are we doing here? Does it feel like this is going to be a lost year for RSL?
Yeah,
it does. Okay.
It does. And I think
that sucks.
To sound pretty dire, like, I think there were lost years, quote unquote, and the tail end of the Deloy year / when the league took over. But people forget that, like, those teams had Demir Krylock,
Jefferson
Savarino, Albert Rusnak, like guys who were really, really good, and that team doesn't have anybody to that caliber right now. They
Okay,
just don't.
one more thing here before we break. I referenced this, even though the transfer portal officially closes today, there have been plenty of examples in the past, dating all the way back to the Garth years, where some things actually did take place and transpire, not officially after the window closed, but they had like the paperwork done that they needed to get done.
They could announce deals later in the week. Yeah,
all right. So
sure.
that possibility is still out there.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe it's our time. It's like 10:59 Mountain.
Okay.
Is when deals need to be submitted to the league. Everything buttoned up. So you could see deals coming in the ensuing days, but it sounds like they'll end up being domestic deals, like with your guy Willie Goals. If the Johnny Russell thing goes through, I know RSL is in line on another potential player in the league, but like nothing is going to blow the fans away.
Let me just kick the tires on this before we break, because Tom Bogert sends out, I feel so bad for the player here. Robert Bozanique really wanted the move. Completed his medical on Tuesday. He's been out of the facility today, too. He was going to get a nice pay raise. Now he's the one left holding the bag because Boavista went back on the agreement. Do you think there's any chance this is resurrected at all, or does it feel like it's totally dead?
If you're RSL, there's no way you can go back and work with these guys unless Robert and his representation and the club that basically screwed you said, yeah, we'll sell him for even cheaper. But I think like you have to flush this thing and never go back.
All right. Well, Chris will give us the truth. He will shoot us straight.
I told you this a month ago.
I know you
did.
I know you did.
These things take so long, and it's so hard to get them over the line. Unfortunately for RSL, they have to learn. This is a harsh learning lesson that you have to figure out who you're really willing to go down these types of paths with.
It is official. RSL has sent out the announcement. Real Salt Lake acquires striker Willie Agata from Sporting Kansas City. Known around here as Willie Goals. All right, we'll catch a break. Coming up next, transfer portal, college football. A lot of people are mad. We'll talk some college football with Chris. We have Patrick Manning later on. Then we'll get back to some NBA playoff basketball and some Jazz hoops coming up in the 5 o'clock hour of the drive on a Wednesday. You're halfway through your work week. You are one day closer to the weekend. We got 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. More with CK coming up next right here on ESPN 700. Is this your selection, Porter, or is this another one from CK?
Yeah, he doubled it up.
Oh, but this is from a TV show, isn't it? Let's get his mic on. Oh, man. It is. What's the name of the song, Porter?
A little On the Wings of Love.
On the Wings of Love was on a television program in the 80s, if I remember correctly. Now, I was this is a great song. I am so glad you selected this. I haven't heard this in years.
We should just do exclusive 80s one-hit wonders anytime I'm on. Basically any day of the show.
Is this Yacht Rock officially?
Yeah, Jeffrey Osborne, yeah.
On the Wings of Love was on a television program. You know what I realized?
I think it was on The Bachelor, Spence, so you might have been caught.
Well, I don't watch The Bachelor. If I did, I would tell you. I mean, I still watch Laguna Beach in the Hills. I'm not,
we've talked about it.
Yeah, I'm not one that is a snob about what I watch. I was having dinner with somebody the other day, and I revealed that I was born in 1978. It is wild when the youngs find out that you were born in the 70s. I'm a child of 70. I was born in 78. I feel like that makes me very, very old these days.
Well, you should be proud. You're part of the best generation.
I agree with that. And the only thing I have over you is that you covet the fact that I'm a Gen Xer because you are an older millennial.
Correct.
How old are you now?
I turned 39 this year.
When's your birthday?
December.
Oh, that's right. You were a December birthday.
Yep.
All right, Chris. The transfer portal in college football is open. Closes on Friday. Twitter mostly is comprised of mentally ill people throwing their feces at each other. But you've got Utah fans and Utah, I'll use in air quotes, reporters talking about BYU messing with Utah players and tampering and such. And then BYU fans throwing their feces back at Utah fans. Is tampering even a thing right now when there are no rules and regulations and you're just doing whatever you have to do to acquire talent?
No, but can I take a quick non sequitur?
Please do. We love non sequiturs on the show.
Well, I guess it's more of a sequitur.
Okay. We love those too.
When I was a kid, living in the Bay Area, we used to go to the San Francisco Zoo.
Great zoo, by the way.
And one time, class field trip, very vivid, like second, third grade. The chimps, just launching it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Full send.
Okay.
Like you would think that these guys were getting scouted by the pros, like full on 30, 40 feet, just launching it. So, yeah. So it's a good analogy.
And that's
basically.
Twitter.
Yes,
that is Twitter.
Yes.
What I've realized about Twitter, truly mentally ill people throwing feces at each other.
Full send.
There's nothing that benefits me ever from going on there but creature of habit, and I go to like specific accounts if I want news. Like my algorithm's messed up. The For You feed, I'm like, none of that's for me. But where we're at now, until there are rules or regulations in place, I don't think there's even such a thing as tampering. Like that's not even real because you're allowed to do whatever you want to do. Transfer portal opens, you can contact whoever you want.
There are no rules. The only rules are whether you make it into the portal before the cutoff date. That's basically it.
Correct.
And if we really want to drill down on this, should we drill?
Let's grind and drill.
This is a peek into the paranoid subconscious of a fan base that is afraid that they are backsliding or devolving into the days that they felt like were gone forever. This is the Utah fan base paranoid that BYU is going to rise again.
Or has risen.
Has risen.
Shout out Easter Sunday.
And this is a byproduct. I mean, like, listen, man, I've lived here for a long time. I went to the U. Some of my best friends, closest friends in the world, went to BYU. Like, we are in it together. We talk about the inner machinations of both fan bases. Utah fans are scared, and that's okay. But if you're going to exist in the cesspool, you need to understand that, like, that's where all of this is coming from. They're upset because it's BYU. If it was any other school, I promise you, they wouldn't be making as much of a fuss. If Keanu Tanavasa decided to go to Stanford or USC or Oregon or Michigan, you wouldn't have cared a single bit compared to him going to BYU. This is a byproduct of Utah fans being afraid, and that's the reality. And until you wrap your mind around the fact that there are no rules, just chill, man. And listen, I can say this because I know. I went to school there. I've been around Utah fans for a long time. This is the inferiority complex playing out in real time. People are up in arms about a dude who has 6 catches. What are we doing, man? This is, and I'm going to go back, like, the 30,000 viewpoint of this whole thing is like, this is Utah failing to build its wide receiver room. This has nothing to do with Zach Williams. This is a fundamental failure once again for Utah to have really good wide receivers, and the fact that people are freaking out that a kid who maybe had a good spring, like people saying, "Oh, he had a good spring game, so we're going to blame the spring game." The lengths that people will go to find a boogeyman, Spence, is wild.
Yeah, it is. And, it's funny you reference the whole, like, undercurrent of fear for Ute fans when it comes to the rivalry at some point swinging back around. Because, dude, for years and years and years, when, Coach McBride builds it up, Urban takes it over, and this 2-year straight to the moon, 2-year Urban Meyer, boom, Utah football is different instantly. Pac-12, Coach Witt, generation of Ute dominance throughout the entire thing. Like every year, it'd be like, all right, send out a tweet about the winning streak, 8 straight, 9, whatever it was, 10 and 12 years. I would say on air, like, you guys know this won't last because all this stuff is cyclical, and maintaining dominance over your rival in any sport on any level never lasts all that long. It was pretty remarkable that after, I think there was just like Lavelle's stretch was like 21-2 against Utah. And so when I was growing up, certainly if Utah made it close, that felt like a win. And then you get the occasional Eddie Johnson,
the occasional wild game.
Right. And that was like an amazing upset that put the wind in the sails of Ute fans. But it was BYU dominating Utah football forever. And so if you're a Utah football fan that's a little bit older, you remember that, and that's a place you never want to go to again. And so the fact that, football fans my son's age, 22, 23 and younger, only know this Ute generation of dominance, it does kind of dissuade from the fact that there are these Ute fans that are older that have enjoyed the past 20 years or whatever, but have always thought, like, what if we go back to the way it was when I was growing up? And what if Kalani gets this thing ticking? And I think the main fear, at least the question I get from a lot of people, is when Kyle's done, what is it going to look like? Because I think, Kyle's established this generation. He was the guy. I've always said the 2 biggest days of Utah football, as far as their generational dominance over their rival and their relative success when it comes to other football programs in the Pac-12, certainly when they won championships. The 2 biggest days were when the Pac-12 invite came and when Kyle said no to his alma mater and yes to Utah. Those are the 2 biggest days that have led us to this space where, of course, BYU got him last year, but it has been a generation of Utah football dominance. But there has been this undercurrent of anxiety that will this thing flip and we're back to the way it was when Lavelle was the head coach. And that ultimately leads to the over-the-top reactions when BYU poaches a Utah football player or whatever it is.
But how are we defining poaching? You know what I mean? Like, what people are failing to realize is that before NIL, before the transfer portal, players were moving back and forth between these 2 programs every single year. Some of the best BYU players in recent memory went to Utah. Some of the best Utah players in recent memory went to BYU. Francis Bernard, great player at BYU, comes to Utah, helps them win, goes to the NFL. Just the first name off the top of my head. There are so many other players like that. Samson Nakua played at Utah, helped them win a Pac-12 title, goes to BYU, play with his brother. It is, you hit the nail on the head. It is a fundamental fear that, the opposition, the dreaded rival has amassed the amount of support that they have, and maybe your side hasn't. But we got to chill, man. And a lot of this comes down to I don't know if we have time for my main thing in life is wanting to expand media literacy across the globe to the youngs, especially the people who live on the internet.
Yep.
This is also a byproduct of this. You always need to double and triple and sometimes quadruple check where you're getting your information online, because I know a lot of people aren't fans of the media world right now, but just proceed with caution. Let's just say that, because not everybody, most people have ulterior motives when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Well, and I also just think, and I know we've been over this in the past, but every time a situation like this takes place, and this happens at both BYU and Utah, there are fans reporting on this stuff, like emotional fans.
Correct.
Where you'll see these people on the sidelines, like jumping around and celebrating. Utah scores a touchdown. They're jumping with the players in the end zone. BYU scores a touchdown, and they're literally celebrating in the scrum with the players and coaches. And these are the people reporting on what's happening.
Can we throw air quotes?
Reporting what's happening with both these schools. And again, it is both. They're like the ecosystem of propaganda coming from BYU, where they own BYU TV and they march these supposed journalists out on TV every day to commentate on the state of the program and report what's actually going on. These are BYU employees, and they are BYU super fans. They are goobs. And it's the same thing that is happening with certain people that are covering Utah football that are just fans.
It is all,
and they want to be in the good graces of the coaches and the administrators. They don't give a rip about bringing accurate information to people. They just want to send something out, and then hopefully Morgan Scalley reads their tweet and was like, yes, I love that guy. Or hopefully Jay Hill is watching BYU TV, and these quasi-media members that are simply propagating information from the university, they just want to endear themselves. They want to be – they're not on the team. They want to be. They're not in the locker room. They want to be. They want to be part of the program. They don't want to be part of, like, actual journalistic integrity where they're bringing real information to people.
And this is not specific to Utah or BYU, unfortunately. This is a permeating issue at Division I colleges and, frankly, in professional sports nationwide.
It comes down to a question: what do fans want? What do people want? What does the average Utah fan want? What does the average BYU fan want? Do they want the echo chamber where they're just fed what they already believe, or do they actually want the truth?
No, they want the echo chamber, and they're ready to unsheathe their swords when anybody comes along and maybe says otherwise. And that is human nature. That is you talk to the GOAT, Spencer Hall, all the time about tribalism and like why college football is so unique compared to really any other sport. Its impact and its overall effect on people resonates differently than I think a lot of professional sports, because a lot of it is so much more community driven. It is, you've invested time and money, you've sat time, wasted time in classes in the library and the study hall. You've paid thousands of dollars to get a piece of paper from this, respective university wherever you went. And yeah, you like going to football games, and football games are fun when your team wins. But we are now to the point where a lot needs to be done in order to properly get the point across on who is independent, who is bringing information from two sides of the story, not just one, because that is also a huge part of this as well. It's like you may have somebody on staff who's telling you to do something and, feeding you information, and that's going to be one-sided. And your job, if you are a independent reporter, is to verify that. And a lot of times, most of the time now, I would say that that's not happening.
Back to the whole dynamic of the undercurrent of fear permeating throughout a fan base. I just think, and I don't know this is my opinion, hence me saying it into a microphone on a radio show. I also think there's a lot of fear among the Utah fan base of what the NIL collective in Provo has to offer and what the Royal Blue Collective or whatever the hell that is. You know, when you hear $7 million for A.J. DeBancer for 5 months of basketball, when Robert Wright signs $1 million contract to play basketball at Baylor and BYU triples it, according to Jeff Goodman.
Money, though.
Well, come on. I mean, like, let's be adults here, okay? Like let's be grown-ups. Like, again, they're going to say what they say, but you have to kind of read between the lines and actually be authentic and truthful about what really is going on. It is about the money. And I do think for a Utah fan, the fear is, and what I've been told is BYU currently has 9 7-figure donors and Utah has 2. And the 2 that Utah has, it's not hard to figure out. Their names are on buildings. So I do think there's also a fear that maybe Utah financially is not in a place to keep up with Brigham Young. And I don't know if that's true. I don't have numbers. I have no idea. Utah might be in a much better place with their collective, the Crimson Collective, than I have any idea about. And BYU maybe isn't in a place where they're collective. I'm just drawing conclusions here because, at least on the basketball side, BYU's writing massive checks. Now, on the football side, it's hard to know because after BYU spring ball wrapped up, Harrison Taggart, really good starting linebacker, Keelan Marion, really good wide receiver. All-American returner. They both hit the transfer portal, and then the Tribune's report about the bro, whoever the bro is that runs the BYU Royal Blue Collective, the MLM bro, whoever that guy is.
Shout out Kev.
Shout out to our guy Kev. Holding the meeting last year and basically dressing down the roster, saying we're cutting your pay because you had a bad year. So I don't know if the football program receives the same NIL that the basketball program does, but I think from a Utah fan perspective, another portion of the fear that is driving these reactions, because you fear what you don't know. And the emotional reactions online of people that are just horribly behaved, it is a byproduct of what you don't know and what you're scared of. And if you're a Utah fan, the fear is, are we keeping up financially with the other programs across the country, namely the one that's 40 miles down south?
I would say it's predominantly just that one, honestly. Like I said, if this was any other school, I don't think there would be as much of a social media uprising, so to speak. I just really don't. Until there is a set rules, rules and regulations in place, until there is a commissioner who can dictate what is, within the bounds of proper, uses of NIL and all of this stuff, it is going to just be off the wall 24/7. And if you are a coach, you signed up for it. If you're a player, you signed up for it. If you're a fan, you need to understand that you're signing up for it too. And I think I said this like in January, February, man, like you should not be up in arms about anything until second week, third week of Camp Kyle, until you're a week away from the season opener, because you don't know what the roster is going to look like. And until then, it can change, and it's maybe hyperbolic to say that, like, everybody is just trying to get through the day, but it kind of is the reality of it. Like, nobody really knows what's around the corner.
Well, and, yes, all that is correct. And I will add this. I think, and back to the whole, like, hey, I was told that it wasn't about the money. Like, when you hear things like ex-BYU athletes going on radio shows and saying, we don't outbid teams, we outlove them, we out-develop them, and we outserve them. And you're like, dude, shut up.
The former editor of the Deseret News, Clark Gilbert, tweeted, who's now like some guy at like BYU Idaho, like made a stink about how BYU is not in the business of paying players.
But it's stuff like that is so offensive. Correct. Because don't tell me that I'm not seeing what I'm seeing. Like, you're basically Steve Bannon, and you're muddying the waters, and you're flooding the zone with misinformation to distract people from what's actually going on. It's the same thing. Don't do that. And I do think that's where a lot of the vitriol comes from, like this hubris and this unauthentic approach where you are lying to me about what's going on. You are outbidding teams for players. And guess what? Good job.
Yeah,
that's the deal.
Just
high five. Yeah. You should be taking victory laps, but
Correct.
Just don't lie about what you're taking the victory lap about. I have long said, when NIL became a reality, the first day I said, you know who this is good news for? BYU.
Yep.
They've got a ton of rich alums that have started companies. Some are in jail. And they've got a ton of rich alums that,
Bull.
yes, shout out to the Bull. Are you going to attend AlphaCon this year?
I'll go if you go.
I'll go. For sure I'll go. If Meg comes with us.
How long will it take for me to get kicked out?
Oh, you'll be kicked out immediately.
I don't even think they let me through the door.
Yeah, you might not get in. I can dress the part.
You can.
Yeah, I can figure it out. Okay, I can pretend like I belong. I still think I should
spray
speak.
tan and maybe pluck the eyebrows a little bit.
Need to cut the hair probably
Need to
short.
Do some spikes.
Probably some creatine. A little skinny right now. Bulk up.
Yeah, protein powder.
Max out 3 credit cards to rent a Hummer or something for the weekend.
Tesla truck.
Indeed. But BYU has a lot of alums that have started companies that have made a lot of money, and a lot of alums that care about sports down there. And I said a ton, a lot. Like as soon as those guys want to open up their wallet, they will be able to get anybody who just cares about money and wants to get paid. And most of these young athletes, they want to get paid. AJ DeBance is not pumped about swig. He's pumped about $7 million, as we talked about. Again, I don't know if the football program is receiving the same NIL that the basketball program is, but BYU is winning in that space right now. Just lean into it and stop telling people that they're not seeing what they're seeing. And I do think that adds to the whole pushback that BYU fans get.
It's also very I'm gonna go big time cultural here. It's very state of Utah, smile to your face, but kind of
stab you in the back. Passive aggressive.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It is so on brand that it is kind of coming out the ears, basically.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
All right, last thing. Fact of the matter is Utah's got work to do. Say what you want about Zach Williams' lack of production to lean into about what he could be. I think most people felt like he was going to be wide receiver 1, and he's gone. We just talked about RSL's inability to get difference makers across the line prior to today. If Utah doesn't add a couple of wide receivers prior to Friday, what's the fall going to look like?
Can Big Willie Goals?
Can he catch? I don't know. We'll have to see. They need help, Chris.
They need help. I know some of the portal bros have tweeted that they have a guy from McNeese State coming to visit.
Sick.
We never knew what it was going to look like anyways. So anybody who was telling you that this offense was going to be historic was lying to you. And who knows? Maybe Jason Beck finds a way to incorporate all the new running backs, or finds a way to incorporate the tight ends that so many people thought the death of 12 personnel was gone forever. Maybe not. Maybe it's been resurrected. But the reality is you have to look at brass tacks. And brass tacks is they have a guy who played at Utah State, Otto Tia, local kid. I think he statistically had the most, touchdowns last year currently on the Utah roster. I think he had 7. The kid from New Mexico had 700 yards. The dude from Mississippi State, Creed, forget his last name.
Whittemore, I believe?
Whittemore, yep. These are all guys who were playing the role of, supplementary players where they came from. I just don't know if these are guys that are going to be able to come in and be the types of leaders statistically that Utah needs. And who knows? Again, anybody that tells you they've been grinding Jason Beck tape from New Mexico is lying to you.
Mm-hmm.
So just take a breath. If you need a libation, take it. If you need a Waterloo, if you need a Spindrift, enjoy the summer and chill.
Ooh, a Spindrift sounds lovely right now. Just so you know, 12 personnel never dies on this show, Chris. Great to see you, my friend. All right. The great Chris Camarani. Before we catch a break, welcome in Ryan from the Dish Professionals. Save a grip of money on a grip of things. That's the bottom line. Dial 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
Yes, call us up today. Be one of the many have saved just a ton of money. Listen, every day we get customers calling in. They're telling us, okay, my cable bill's gone up. I hear you on the radio. What can you offer? Because it is crazy the amount of money people are paying versus what they could be paying. You know you're overpaying. Pick up the phone and just call us. It's easy and simple, not a high-pressure thing on our end. We're just going to give you a better deal, get you a price guarantee. We'll throw in some movie channels. Also get you set up with the biggest, fastest DVR out there. The auto hops commercials, auto records your games, and plus you can have all the streaming apps built into the system. So you just have one remote that runs everything. It's all interlaced together, easy to use and operate. Call us up today, get set up with that. We'll set you up with dinner at JCW's. Plus, we'll check and see if you've got a gift card offer out there. You just missed it in the mail. About 60% of the time we find these, and that's a $300 or $500 gift card in your pocket. Call us 424-DISH, 801-424-DISH.
Shout out to my good friends at Burt Brothers with over 30 years of experience in nearly 30 locations. Burt Brothers ASC certified technicians bring expertise and professionalism to every interaction. One-stop shop for reliable repairs and maintenance, from tires and alignments to fluids and brakes. Tax Day savings sale is in full swing. Buy 3 tires and get 1 free on select Goodyear, Falcon, and Firestone tires. Plus, get an extra $50 off on purchases over $500 using the Burt Brothers card. Tax Day savings sale also includes saving $40 on your Valvoline synthetic oil change. Stop by a Burt Brothers or a Tire Busters locations, or schedule an appointment online today to experience the trusted service that has made Burt Brothers a Utah favorite for over 3 decades. Burt Brothers, doing it better since day one. Do a little golf with Patrick Manning coming up. 5 o'clock hour tonight will be NBA playoffs and NFL draft, and we'll say goodnight at 6. On a Wednesday afternoon, you're halfway through that work week. You're one day closer to the weekend. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. All right, during the 5 o'clock hour of the show tonight, we will get back to the NBA playoffs. Good games last night. Excited for that Warriors-Rockets game tonight. Jason Tatum's not going to play for the Boston Celtics. It's also the eve of the NFL draft. So we'll bring in a good draft guest. But LPGA Tour is returning to the Black Desert Golf Course, Black Desert Championship, and friend of the program, Patrick Manning, managing partner of the Black Desert Resort, joins us on a Wednesday. Patrick, happy Wednesday, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, Spence. How you been?
I'm good. Do I complain now that I can't get a tee time at Black Desert? Do we save that for later?
Yeah, let's save that one for later.
All right. Fair enough. I'm coming down to St. George in May, and I inquired in February, and unfortunately you guys were packed, but all good. Here's where I want to start, Patrick. What have you guys learned that you're hoping to kind of improve upon as the LPGA and then the PGA Tour is returning to Black Desert?
Yeah, great question. First hats off to our tournament team. They are spectacular, and they did such a great job on our inaugural PGA tournament. I think a couple of things that we learned, even though it was like operationally, the PGA said it was like it was a 10th year tournament. It was run so smoothly. But I think two things that we are improving upon is there was a bottleneck between tee boxes 1 and 10 that created some slowdown for spectators and we just reconfigured the tee boxes. So now that is rectified and will not be a bottleneck. And, almost every tournament has one somewhere, but that was the only one we found and we've corrected it. The other thing is that I think we learned that having 3-story structures are probably just too tall because unless you're sitting on the third floor along the drink rail, you can't see the action. So we're probably going to go wider with the stands, or we are rather going wider and not as many stories. It'll be more efficient use of space. So, those are pretty small tweaks to an otherwise really well-run tournament.
What has been the reaction from both the LPGA Tour and the PGA Tour to just the experience? I did have an opportunity to play down there a couple of years ago when you guys first opened up, and I was blown away. It is first class, the way you guys have gone about just the entire experience, not just the golf. The clubhouse is great. The food is good. The caddies we had were really, really great young men and enjoyed the experience start to finish. But from a professional standpoint, what's the feedback you guys have received now that you are officially a course that has hosted an LPGA and a PGA Tour event?
Yeah, we haven't. This coming up in next week will be our first LPGA tournament that we've hosted. But having the PGA behind it, I don't want to name drop, but one of the large names on the tour with a huge following told the president of the PGA Tour that the Black Desert resort experience, the golf course, just the overall package was, his words, the best stop on the tour. So that was pretty lofty accolades there. I think overall, just the players being able to get into their condos that were they had their own buildings that no one else was in. So being able to get to their hotel room and then get down to the locker rooms and then into player-only dining, into caddy dining, and into fitness, all without interfacing, public interface, that doesn't exist anywhere else on the tour. And so I think the player experience when they're outside the ropes was a premium experience for them. And then, of course, inside the ropes, the course is great. So I think the PGA was very enthused about the tournament, and the LPGA, they haven't played yet, but they're very excited that we are celebrating the women the way we are with the private jets to pick them up and stay at the resort for free. Just really rolling out the red carpet for the ladies, and they're just enthusiastic how over the top we're going, rolling out the red carpet.
I misspoke because what I read is the LPGA Tour is returning to Utah, but not returning to the Black Desert Resort because, to your point, this is the first time. The field for the LPGA events, what are some of the highlights? What can you share with us?
Well, you can go to lpga.com and click on Black Desert and click on the entries, and you can see the entire field. But I can tell you that we had, I don't know if it's a record, it's pretty close, out of the 144 player field, we had around 195 players register for the tournament. And I think we have 21 of the top 25 players in the world in the field. And so we've got a stacked field. And I think a lot of that is because, you know, I know a lot of the LPGA players, and they've told me that, you know, when they saw Black Desert on television with PGA, they were blown away. They're just like, we want to play that. And then if you're going to send us jets, like, yeah, we're going to show up.
Love it. Well, I love it. As far as the public down there where you're located, and certainly up here too, you know, volunteers, opportunities for people to get involved. What can you shed a little light on that?
Yeah, there's a blackdesertevents.com is where you can go for anything: tickets, general admission, VIP hospitality, sponsorships, and also the opportunity to volunteer. I think, you know, we probably have a few spots left for volunteering, and we have some tickets still remaining. The ticket sales have been fantastic, and I think more than anything, what I want to accomplish from this LPGA tournament is that when this is aired in over 220 countries, that the world sees that Utah showed up for these women, which is fantastic. So, but anyway, blackdesertevents.com, you can go to. And before I forget, Spence, this was just a kind of a new development. We partnered with the Bank of Utah, and for every general admission adult ticket that's purchased, and they're about $55 a day, for every general admission ticket, the Bank of Utah will buy 2 tickets for kids to join. So, you know, two adult tickets get you 4 kids.
That's awesome. On the men's side of things, October 23rd through the 26th is when the Black Desert Championship will be played at your course. Give me some personal highlights. I mean, you're the guy credited with the vision that made this happen, and I'm always very impressed when a visionary actually executes a plan that lands the plane in place. What were some of your personal highlights after witnessing that event last year, won by Matt McCarty?
Well, one of my and let me just say that about the extent of my expertise and involvement in this tournament was calling the PGA and telling them that I want a PGA Tour and selling them on it. Then I had to hire people, or we had to hire people that were really, really smart and good at this to pull it all off. So, but I think one of my favorite moments was when I was asked to hand the trophy off to Matt McCarty, and I just said to the crowd, like, this isn't about Black Desert, this is about Utah. And so I asked the governor to hand off the trophy on behalf of the state of Utah. And then for the women, I've got Deidre Henderson, Lieutenant Governor, is going to hand it off to the lady that wins this one. But after the trophy ceremony, like an hour and a half later, I'm at home now because I was exhausted. And a friend of mine called me and said, "You're not going to believe what Matt McCarty is doing right now." And I said, "What?" He said, an hour and a half after he wins the PGA tournament, he's now in the 20th hole, which is our sports bar, playing Black Desert on the TrackMan simulator. So that was pretty fun.
That was great. That was great. What's the long-term play? Actually, no, before we go there, I wanted to ask you, because I read that you first came across the property 20 years ago. So what was the origin story, Patrick, of when you first discovered the land and when you decided that this was what you wanted to do with it? And how did this all kind of come to fruition?
Yeah, so somebody told me, I was living in Kentucky and Florida at the time, and somebody told me I should go check out Entrada, which Black Desert used to be within the footprint of Entrada. And so they told me come check it out. And the short version is my wife and I came out. I stood on the land, and the best way I can describe it is it was suffocating. I just had this overwhelming feeling that I was supposed to sell everything and move here and just do this. And, and it took convincing my wife a little bit to do that. But came out here, and it hit me, we have 6 million visitors a year. We have twice as many visitors as Park City has. And there wasn't a there. There was nothing, like, you go on a hike, and then, what do? You go to dinner, and then it's over. What do you do? And so the first part of the vision was the boardwalk with, 15 restaurants and shops and cobblestone streets with no cars and strolling and live music and a place for people to go. that's got a sense of community. And then from there, it was, okay, now we also need to build a nice hotel, more of a base camp for all the state national parks. And then it was like, well, if we're going to do that, we need other things to do when people aren't hiking. So let's build a world-class golf course. Let's build a world-class water park. Let's, just all of these things that make it a world-class destination resort that the area really, in my opinion, it really needed.
So I believe I asked you this last time, and genuinely just curious, because just getting a PGA event in our state is pretty remarkable. But as a result of where you're at on the calendar, it's going to be tough to attract some of the top shelf, top name guys. Now, the field was fun last year. You had golfers with Utah ties, and you had some former major champs, and you had some names that people know. Ultimately, I just wonder if you're still envisioning a day where the event on the PGA side of things is on a different spot in the calendar in order to attract some of the top name guys.
Yeah, about all I can say about that is that we're never, we love having the PGA tournament here, and if it remained in the fall, we continue to host it and love having it. But of course, we're always going to push for the next biggest thing. So that there's been discussions, but there's not any imminent movement. But there are discussions.
Have you had any discussions with one Tony Finau about potentially playing this year, regardless of where he's at in October?
Well, he told me last year when he couldn't make it because he was co-captaining his son's first national tournament that he promised he would play this year. I've talked to him, but I have not started to put the pressure on him yet. So if you're listening, Tony, I'm coming for you.
Okay. Tony's a big listener to the show. I can tell you that. He's a big fan of the program, so hopefully he's tuned in. Look, I don't mean to belabor the point at all. It just, watching that last year, just as a golf fan, I am picturing Scotty and Rory, right, and JT. I would imagine, as a guy who clearly is a bit of a visionary and looks at things the way you do, that some of those visions dance in your head. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say that was the case before the ink was dry on the PGA tournament.
Sure. How's your game, by the way? What kind of player are you?
I am a past player. I have not. I'm embarrassed to say this because I used to play 36 holes a day, 7 days a week, and no exaggeration. I have not even played Black Desert yet.
What? Why? What is going on?
Partially because things are really, really super busy, and the thought of me being 4 hours behind on emails and texts and everything is exhausting.
Sure.
Also, just that when I've got 6 kids, and my oldest 3 didn't want anything to do with golf, and then my younger 3 do now. But my older didn't, and it just kind of got me out of golf. And so, I like to host the tournaments. I love to show the players a great time. I love to watch the fans have a good time. And I don't need the golf to do that.
Okay, fair enough. Because that gives me confidence that you can be an addict in recovery. Because at this point, I'm very much. I don't play 36 holes 7 days a week. If I could, I would. I'll tell you that much. Just out of curiosity, who are some of the just like big name people that you've had down there, that you've hosted down there, outside of like pro golfers? I would imagine you get people from all around the world wanting to play the track. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've had quite a bit. I mean, we had Drew Brees. I don't know if I'm super comfortable name dropping who's been here or not. We've had some high profile rock stars. We've had some high profile country singers. We've had quite a few.
Give me one name. Give me one rock star name, Patrick. Give me one name.
Yeah, I can't do that.
All right, fine.
Then I
Then
want to respect their privacy.
No, that's fine. Then I will end asking you, how does a humble servant of the people that does 4 hours of sports talk radio every day get a tee time? How does that work?
You text me.
Boom. There we go. Porter, do you have Patrick Manning's cell phone number?
I got you.
All right, done and done, because I had such a great experience, and I promise, based off of what you've built down there, I will not text you every day because I feel like we should be best friends. But I'll just text you maybe once or twice a year to get tee times if that works.
You got it. Whenever you need.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the time. Best of luck with the event, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Okay.
Yep. Thanks, Spence.
All right, there we go. Patrick Manning, managing partner at Reef Capital Partners, the man behind the vision that brought us Black Desert Resort, and my new best friend. No big deal. Do you really have a cell phone?
I do.
Can you please send it to me right now?
Yeah, we'll connect you guys. It sounds like you might be good to go.
So the LPGA Tour, I misread it earlier, is returning to Utah, but not returning to the Black Desert Championship because ultimately this is the first time. So as Patrick referenced, if you want to volunteer down there, there are still some opportunities. If you go to blackdesertchampionship.com, and then the PGA Tour will make its return coming up in October. And yeah, last year it was a cool field. I'm not saying that it wasn't, but it just, as a result of where it is on the calendar, a lot of the better players in the world of professional men's golf do not need the points, do not need the FedEx points because most of the events are past us. We had Lucas Glover last year. We had a lot of golfers with Utah ties, but no Tony Finau. Matt McCarty won it. Steven Yeager's a really good player. Lucas Glover finished third. Harris English was in the field. There were some other decent names, but if Patrick and his partners at some point could potentially move this to maybe spring or early summer, maybe at some point we will see Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, and some of the star golfers in the world of professional golf descend upon our state, which would be very, very cool. All right, Patrick stops by today, courtesy of our friends at Burt Brothers, with over 30 years of experience in nearly 30 locations. Burt Brothers ASE certified technicians bring expertise and professionalism to every interaction. It's a one-stop shop for reliable repairs and maintenance, from tires and alignments to fluids and brakes. Tax Day savings sale is in full swing. Buy 3 tires and get 1 free on select Goodyear, Falcon, and Firestone tires. Plus, get an extra $50 off on purchases over $500 using the Burt Brothers card. The Tax Day savings sale at Burt Brothers also includes saving $40 on your Valvoline synthetic oil change. So stop by our Burt Brothers or Tire Busters locations or schedule an appointment today to experience the trusted service that has made Burt Brothers a Utah favorite for over 3 decades. Burt Brothers doing it better since day one. 5 o'clock hour tonight, we'll do some NBA playoff basketball and some NFL draft. It is the eve of the NFL draft. But before we catch a break, Ryan from the Dish Pros, give him a call at 801-424-DISH, where you can save a bunch of money on a bunch of different things. What's going on, Ryan?
You know, if you're like me, there's a lot of us out there that we love our traditional style of TV. We like to have the DVR. We want to be able to pick up the remote. We want to watch our shows. So, guys, here's the thing. Prices have gone up so much that it makes you want to look other places. Now, here's the thing is now you go over to YouTube TV, and it's the same price because their prices are going up. Call and get set up with Dish. I've got a 2-year promotion. The price is guaranteed not to change. It's the same price as YouTube TV, which means it's ultimately going to be a lot cheaper than YouTube TV because they're going to still raise their price over and over. You get the biggest DVR on the market, 16 tuners, 2 terabytes. It auto-records your games. It auto-records the locals. It'll auto-hop commercials. Nobody does this. Plus, you have access to all your DVR content anywhere you go with the Dish Anywhere app, which you can also use on Amazon Fire Stick, and also with the Hopper Plus technology, you can add every single app that you want, and it's all integrated in the system. It's like a channel. Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it cheap. That's what Dish has done. We'll throw in dinner at JCW's, movie channels, and have you installed for free the next day. Plus, we'll actually look and see if we can throw in another gift card on top of that. Dish sent out about 60,000 pre-qual gift card offers, and we've got a tool where we can look that up. So when you call us, we'll look up and see if you got one. If we did, about 60% of the time we find them, we'll attach that on top of the great offer with Dish. But you got to call us. Don't call an 800 number. They won't do that for you. Call the Dish professionals, 424-DISH, 801-424-DISH.
All right, there he is, Ryan from the Dish Pros. We got 3 hours down. We've got 1 hour to go. 5 o'clock hour of the program tonight. We'll do a little NBA playoff basketball. Some takeaways from last night. We'll preview the games tonight. We'll give you the up-to-date news and information regarding the college football transfer portal that closes on Friday. And then, of course, the NFL draft is tomorrow. As you're home of the NFL draft, we'll talk some draft, and we'll say goodnight at 6. On a Wednesday afternoon, you are halfway through your work week. You are one day closer to the weekend, so keep it right here on The Drive with Spence Checketts on ESPN 700, 92 on FM. We are proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network. All right, let's get it. Drive at 5 time Wednesday afternoon, which means you are halfway through that work week and you are one day closer to the weekend. The sun is trying to shine, but it's been cloudy here in downtown Salt Lake City all day, but warm, about 66, 67 degrees. We've got a decent forecast coming up throughout the weekend, so happy Wednesday to you. And as it is every single day, it is great to have you with us. Spence Checketts behind the mic. That's Porter Larson behind the glass. We've had a jam-packed Wednesday show. Stanley Cup playoffs are getting ready to get going tonight. It's already been a really fun first couple of games. Neil Smith stopped by earlier in the program to preview tonight's action. It is Montreal and Washington. Game one of the series was a classic. Alex Ovechkin tallied in overtime to give the Caps a 1-0 lead over the Canadiens. Great series out west. Ball Arena tonight in Denver sees the Stars and the Avs. The Avs are healthy. Right time of the year. Dallas, a really good team. That series is tied at 1 game apiece. And the Kings gave up a 4-goal lead, but actually won in overtime, becoming the third team in NHL history to do that. And they take a 1-0 lead tonight against the Edmonton Oilers. So, a little playoff hockey. Playoff basketball, of course. Triple header tonight. Jason Tatum's going to miss the first playoff game of his career, but it should not matter, as the Boston Celtics should handle the Orlando Magic rather easily at TD Garden, although game one was a little hairy for Boston in the first half. That's going to be 5 o'clock on Turner Sports. That's tipping off right now. And then NBA TV will have the Heat and the Cavs coming up at 5:30. And then the Warriors and the Rockets tonight, 7:30 at the Toyota Center in Houston. A classic game one, classic Stephen Wardell Curry performance. Jimmy Butler was great as well. We'll see if that young Rockets team can figure some things out. So some playoff basketball tonight. NFL draft coming up tomorrow. Don't forget, we are your home of the NFL draft in the market. A lot of rumors. You don't know how much is smoke this time of year. You have no idea how much is just NFL teams trying to throw media members or other teams off the scent. But a lot of buzz about Jackson Dart, who played his high school football about 20 miles south of here, and where he could end up. A lot of people think the Steelers are high on him. After Aaron Rodgers, well, you know what? Never mind. The Steelers need a quarterback is what it comes down to. Could Shedeur Sanders fall to 21? Not a lot of local buzz. Tyler Batty, Jacob Robinson, Caleb Etienne from Brigham Young, Junior Tafuna, Karene Reed, Brant Keithy, Mekhi Bernard, Caleb Lohner, too. You have to throw him in there. Not sure how many local players are actually going to get drafted this year, but hopefully some land with teams via the undrafted free agency route. A lot of players have done that, and oftentimes you'd rather be undrafted than be drafted by a team you don't want to go to in like the 6th or the 7th round. So, of course, we'll keep you up to date on anything that comes down. The college football transfer portal remains open until Friday. Zach Williams announced yesterday he is leaving the University of Utah football program. He is going to the transfer portal, and some news broke about an hour ago that Jelani Davis is entering the transfer portal. He is a safety from the University of Utah as well. So that's the deal, man. I know a lot of people are not happy about this dynamic of college sports. It leads to a lot of lively debates online. A lot of people not really happy about how this is going down. But the House versus the NCAA settlement, I mean, it was supposed to be passed by now. Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports is reporting that the judge involved in the case has gone back to the people involved, mandating that certain changes are implemented, or else she'll continue to push it back. And that will be a big date that will give the Mark Harlans of the world, the Tom Homos of the world, as long as Tom is in charge, more guidance, guidelines, guardrails about exactly how this thing is going to go down. So when you see people online saying this team is tampering with our players, no, they're not, because it's not a thing, because there's not a rule against it. If a player's in the transfer portal, he is essentially a free agent. And that's what it comes down to. I cannot corroborate any of these rumors that Utah is trying to poach BYU players or BYU is trying to poach Utah players. I don't know. My guess is, yes, that is going down on a very high level. It's not just going down here. It's going down all over the landscape of college football and college basketball. And when a player from your school enters the transfer portal, any other school can approach him. And quite frankly, it probably have already been approached. And that's not a new dynamic in college football. It's not a new dynamic in the world of the local landscape of college football. We've had a lot of kids that have been on LDS missions for example, contacted by schools while they're gone, even though they've already committed or even played for a year at another school. And we've seen players from BYU end up at Utah. We have seen players from Utah end up at BYU. It's not anything new, and it's not anything that will stop. So you can get mad about it all you want. You can argue with anonymous strangers on the internet all you want. If you think that's good for your mental health, it's not going to change anything at all. So Claudia Wilken is the judge for the House versus the NCAA, settlement that we are waiting. We're waiting for this to come down. And, yeah, she has essentially issued an order giving attorneys 14 days to phase in or grandfather roster limits, or she will continue to deny the House settlement. This is according to Ross Dellinger. So a lot of people continue to wait to see whether or not this is actually going to go down. I want to give a shout out to my friends at Cortland Roofing. The 5 o'clock hour of the program tonight is brought to you by Cortland Roofing. We're going to do a comprehensive preview of the NFL draft coming up with our next guest. Cortland Roofing is your go-to for all of your re-roofing, roof repairs, and roof maintenance needs. They're offering a free insurance analysis, free estimates, and senior discounts. You can go to cortlandroofing.com. And here's the thing. They've got a great special going on right now. So now that winter is more or less behind us, you probably have checked out your roof. Well, if you haven't, you should. And if you've noticed some things that need to be fixed, our friends at Cortland Roofing right now are offering you free rain gutters with a roof repair, with a roof replacement. That's a value of thousands of dollars. So free rain gutters with a roof replacement, courtesy of our friends at Cortland Roofing, your go-to for all your re-roofing, roof repairs, and roof maintenance needs. Go to cortlandroofing.com for more information. All right, last night, NBA playoffs, couple of quick hits here. The Pacers-Bucks series is this under-the-radar, like, fun series. For some reason, these two teams very much do not like each other. Dame Lillard, Weber State superstar, made his return after missing essentially the last month and a half or so as a result of blood clot complications. Say that 10 times fast. And he and Tyrese Halliburton, there's something there. There's something going on. Tyrese likes to do the Dame time thing. He points to his watch, and there's not a lot of love lost. We saw Pascal Siakam get into it with Bobby Portis because everybody gets into it with Bobby Portis. Pacers took a 2-0 lead in that series. I don't really care to mention the Thunder Grizzlies series. That's going to be over in 4 and should be over in 3 if that was a thing. And the Lakers flipped the script last night with a very, very classic Luka Doncic game. And just LeBron doing what LeBron does. It's if you're a Laker fan and if you are looking for a team to potentially challenge OKC, it's got to be very convenient for J.J. Redick just to allow LeBron to be LeBron but not have to rely on him to make miracles happen. They run their offense through Luka. And that's not breaking news because he's generationally special, a global superstar at the age of 25. You do not trade players like that. And J.J. Redick last night decided he's going to do what I think Steve Kerr will have to do in order for Golden State to win. Jackson Hayes does not have a place in this series. He is their starting center. You know, the Lakers tried to acquire Mark Williams after they were able to acquire Luka, and he failed his physical. So they just don't have big bodies that are good at basketball. They have Alex Len and Markieff Morris. But in order for them to win this series against Minnesota, looks like J.J. Redick is going with a lineup that features Dorian Finney-Smith or Gabe Vincent, and then their bigs essentially are Rui Hachimura and LeBron. And LeBron did a really good job last night defensively in spurts, chose his moments when to really exert that energy that at his advanced age is tough to do consistently. So Minnesota could not shoot straight. It was a weird Anthony Edwards game. He really didn't get going until the second half. He had a great dunk over Jackson Hayes, but ultimately the Lakers were able to even that thing up, a one game apiece. They'll go back to Target Center in Minneapolis, and we'll see how it goes. Boston has a 10-8 lead early over the Orlando Magic as the NBA playoff action continues. The New Orleans Pelicans, they've hired Troy Weaver as their VP of basketball ops. Troy Weaver was the player personnel director for the Jazz back in 2007. He was the head scout here back in the day as well. So congratulations to Troy. Really good dude. Happy for him. Jimmer Fredette has announced that he has retired from basketball. He was one of the most entertaining college basketball players that we've ever had in the state. Say whatever you want about it. If you want to hate on it because all the attention it received, that's fine. Jimmer Mania, it ruled. It was fun. I was on air during that time. He, of course, never panned out in the world of the NBA, something that, well, hate to say I told you so. BYU fans were mad at me that year when I said that he was never going to be a high-caliber or high-quality NBA player. It's not a knock on him. It's just who he was as a player. But a really, really great dude, an unbelievably electric, exciting college basketball player. College basketball fans in the state will always look back on what that team could have been if Brandon Davies was not suspended for the NCAA tournament, which just is, never mind. But Jimmer has been on the show multiple times. I consider him a friend as much as you can as a media member. I don't necessarily exist in that space quite a bit. But drafted by the Kings, never fully worked out. Spent some time with Chicago, spent some time with New Orleans, spent some time with New York, spent some time with Phoenix, also G League in San Antonio, and then went over to China, where he was the MVP of the Chinese Basketball Association in 2017. He would drop like 60, 70 points, regularly became a real legend over there, and kind of ended his career in the 3-on-3 tournament with the Olympics. But I know Jimmer has faced a lot of pushback, a lot of hate over the years, people labeling him as a bust and such. I kind of equate it, and I have equated it to the Zach Wilson situation. I thought it was pretty easy to see that Jimmer was never going to be a good NBA player, but every time Jimmer would take a step down in competition, he would dominate because he had this skill set where if you allowed him to dominate the basketball against lesser competition, he was so dynamic with the ball in his hand and his ability to shoot off the dribble that he was going to be able to get buckets. He was never a great catch and shoot guy. That was kind of his main deal. He was never able to get his shot off against NBA defenders because he really was more of a shoot it off the bounce guy, and he did not have the speed or the size to be able to get his shot off against NBA defenders. And also, he was not quick enough to be an NBA point guard, so no NBA coach was going to give Jimmer Fredette the basketball the way Dave Rose gave him the basketball with the greenest of green lights. But then he would go down to the G League, and he would drop like 40, and BYU fans would be like, he just needs the right landing spot. He needs the right coaching. No. And BYU fans doing this revisionist historian stuff, well, if he was never drafted by the Kings, they did him dirty. He played for Greg Popovich. He played for Alvin Gentry. He played for some of the best offensive coaches in the NBA. He could just never get a shot off the way that he did in college or in China or in the G League, and that's why it never worked out on the NBA level. But I don't consider Jimmer Fredette a bust at all. Glens Falls, New York, this podunk town in upstate New York, and took the college basketball world by storm and ended up making millions of dollars playing professionally, even though it didn't work out in the NBA. Porter, give me a Jimmer Fredette take. Jimmer, good dude. In fact, reach out to him, please. See if he'll come on the show now that he's announced his retirement. But what do you make of this kind of fun ride that Jimmer Fredette took us all on?
Yeah, man. Obviously, one of the most exciting and entertaining basketball players at the college level that we've ever seen here in the state of Utah. And you can start a list if you want to, but there's a really short one, maybe 3 players long, when you're talking about collegiate basketball players in the state of Utah, as far as how good they actually were while they were here. Now, you mentioned it. The NBA stuff didn't work. I, like you, kind of saw that with Jimmer, just his skill set. Similar to Zach, I like the parallel you made. I think, obviously, Jimmer was a much better college player, but the transition, right, from the college level to the pros gave them similar struggles, I think, in finding their footing. And with Jimmer, yeah, maybe an NBA bust when you look at just the totality of what he was expected to maybe do. But like you said, spent a decade, 15 years playing professional basketball, made a boatload of money, grew the game overseas, and had a really, really, really good career, even on the home of the Utes. You can admit that. And like you said, a good guy, always happy to join the shows, and a net benefit to the state of sport when it comes to Utah, especially on the hoop side.
I was courtside when Jimmer dropped 47 on the Utes here at the Huntsman, hit a half-court shot at the buzzer at halftime. I was courtside watching him drop 43 on Kawhi Leonard in San Diego State back in the old Mountain West Conference tournaments. He was a joy to watch, and he's a really, really good dude. And so I'm happy for him as we say goodbye to Jimmer Fredette. He's officially retired from the game of basketball. All right, NBA playoffs tonight, Stanley Cup playoffs tonight, but tomorrow it is the NFL Draft. Porter, what comes our way on a draft day edition of the program?
On a Thursday edition of The Drive, Spence, we'll start things off in studio with Big Dave Checketts. A lot of news on RSL, on kind of the state of sport in the market here. So plenty you can get to with one Dave Checketts. Talking some NFL draft with Zach Moss, Mike Yam with a little NFL action as well. And yes, I did shoot a text to our guy Jimmer Fredette. We'll see if we can get him on the show. If not tomorrow, hopefully in the near future. He's not as busy, I guess, not playing any basketball.
Very nice. Yeah, it'd be good to catch up with Jimmer, but that'll be a fun Thursday show. Join us for that. We'll say goodnight. Special thank you to Sam Bruckhouse, Neil Smith, Chris Camerani, and Patrick Manning. For any of the sound you may have missed from the show, go to the website. It is ESPN700sports.com. Download our mobile app. ESPN 700 app is available for free in the Google Store and the Apple Play Store. And then finally, for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 hours, check out our podcast page, which is called The Drive with Spence Checketts. And that is available wherever you get your shows. Subscribe, rate, review, say nice things in the comments. Give us all the stars. It actually does help out. For Porter, I'm Spence saying goodnight. Enjoy your Wednesday evening. We'll talk to you on a Thursday drive. And as always, you can find that right here on ESPN 700, 92 FM. We are proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network.